Everyone, what is up? Apparently not my camera. Sorry about that. Should be on now. There we are. Okay. What's up, everyone? Happy hump day. I had the very unfortunate issue of I think I ate something that did not agree with me earlier, so yeah, let's just say that there were frequent flights to a certain room that has a bath. Yeah, but anyway, we're doing a lot better now. I've been working on my little projects here and there. I found a bug actually in one of my the Stream Demon project that I had, which it was basically the Docker version, the pre-built one, was hard-coding values. So I was troubleshooting how to fix that right before stream. I'll have that pushed out shortly. I was actually waiting for it to do some GitHub checks. I'll actually show you what I'm talking about. Because this is actually a good lesson for many of you out there. Because I was actually trying to get this to notify a little bit faster, because I had it set originally for 5 minutes, and I can hear all the alerts are going off now. But when I do a pull request, which is the right way to be doing things, instead of just pushing the main. What's up, Bedrock? I was waiting for all these checks that I have. So I have some CI/CD checks, continuous integration, continuous development. So the idea is basically when I push code, GitHub is actually going to go through and test if this code runs on Python 3.10 through 3.14, do a lint and security check on the GitHub side, does a code quality scan, then runs it through sneak.io, which is another code security tool, and then it also runs it through Trivy, which basically is it builds the after it's built the Docker, it tests the Docker inside of it, so that we see if there's any vulnerabilities with the Docker being built. You know, code QL analysis, again, dependency vulnerability scans on the push and when we approve of the pull request. And as we can see, a Docker build and publish, build and test Docker image, make sure it actually gets built. So this pull request right here, I forgot I added actually an earlier one that I meant to do, was to address 2 CVEs that were apparently found by these security checks. Now, to be fair, the security checks actually were specific to the Docker, not to my code, because the Docker was using a version of pip. Let me see what the CVEs are over here. It was CVE 2025-8869 and 2025-7709. So basically it was using an old version of SQLite. So we upgraded that inside the Docker container. And pip is moved from 25.2 to 25.3. Random question, what's Code Crafters? Code Crafters is a nice little way for you to tinker with all sorts of different ways to level up your code, and they give you interesting little projects here. I've actually been partnered with them for a while. So the idea is, so they have a free plan for anyone that's wondering. There's of course a more professional version, but you can get all sorts of, let me see, they've changed the site I think a little bit. Hit the wrong button, I think. No, that was the right button. But basically, they give you a bunch of different projects inside of here, and you can build them up in different languages. So you can see, like, there's challenges: build your own Redis, build your own Git, SQLite, grep, BitTorrent, HTTP server, DNS server, shell, interpreter, Kafka. So let's look at the BitTorrent, for example. You can see there's people that have, you know, tried building this, and there's little challenges for it. So it's kind of like a CTF, but see if you can build a version of it. And the challenge is basically to build this in different languages. So as you can see, you can build it in TypeScript, Elixir, C#, C++, C, Zig, Rust, Ruby, Kotlin, JavaScript, Java, Haskell, Python, and Go. So if you want to, you can try doing these little projects in all these different languages to basically level up your skills and give yourself a challenge. Because if you're like me, a lot of the ways that we tinker with new coding ideas and concepts and things like that is we give ourselves a project. A lot of people, most people in my honest opinion, learn better from working on projects than doing just regular classwork lessons. So Codecrafters is a really great platform for that. I've partnered with them for years. You can go check my link in bio if you don't see it, as well as the code over there. Of course, as I said, they do have a free plan, but if you do decide to get their full version with a bit more perks, or your company buys it, help support the channel. But I as I always say, I only... You got an ad, but I could see what you're showing. But yeah, it's basically you give yourself a bunch of different challenges to build all different things. So like I brought up the example here, build your own BitTorrent in Go, Python, Haskell, JavaScript, Kotlin, Ruby, Rust, Zig, C, C++, C#, Elixir, and TypeScript. So you basically, it's like a CTF but for coding. Yeah. It's a great little platform. I've been partnered with them for years. They have a free plan here, so you can, you know, just like, you know, Hack the Box and Try Hack Me. They have free plans, but of course, you know, you're going to get more features when you pay for the membership plan. And if you do get it through my link in bio, it helps support the channel. But as always, I never recommend anything unless I actually believe in it and use it myself. So, yeah, Codecrafters, very worthwhile. I've learned quite a few tricks from doing different stuff there myself. But back to what I was saying here, so we had a couple of security vulnerabilities that I'm addressing in the Docker builds. In all fairness, let me see if I can show you. Yep, so we're going to open up the code scanning over here. You can also see this in my repo. I keep it transparent. These are medium vulnerabilities. So in all fairness, these are not really that serious to look at. They are CVEs, but they're not, from my knowledge, they're not KEVs, known exploited vulnerabilities. But I still want to address them, nonetheless. But these two only address the Docker build, because Trivy is doing this check. So that means it's running the Docker, checking it, and saying, hey, you got some packages here. So it's pip 25.2, has a vulnerability, fixes, upgrade to 25.3. Simple enough. We just have it upgrade to 25.3 in the script. So similar thing, SQLite over here had an integer overflow. With the installed version over here, fixed version, well, it didn't note it, but basically it was 3.50, and you can see, here's the CVE information over here. But, yeah, so that's what we're fixing in these two over here. But I also forgot to do the pull request for these vulns over here. So I built another branch because I found another bug with my system. Well, basically, it's going to pull in these two security fixes and fixing the hard-coded values that I had of the Docker image. So if you look over here, when I had the Docker compose files, it was hard-coding it to 5 minutes, and if I adjust that, that'd be to 2. So even when you downloaded the new Docker image, if you got it from the Docker container registry, which I recommend people do, or you can build it yourself. If you build it yourself, then you could, get over this. We've modified these 2 values over here, so it will set a default of 2, but it will default to the environment variables file or the secrets manager, wherever you decide to put it, so that way you can have that adjustable, which was the whole intention of it. Yep. Is it possible to F up a virtual machine so badly that it affects your actual system? Not really. That's the hypervisor, and the hypervisor is totally different than just the underlying virtual machine. So if you did something to mess up your main system, you did something really, really bad. All right, so we had this go through the 17 checks right now. It's doing the Docker build and publish, but what I'm also going to do is do a little bit of a test. So, we have the test version here. I test with random other people when I'm not online, because obviously I'm too lazy to, just go live for that reason. So I'm going to remove those guys over there, and I have a testing ground channel. Okay, so that should be written there. Did I make a Docker build? No, I did not. Alright, so we're gonna... I always forget the damn syntax for that. Devils, you've used that joke so many times. Docker, I barely know her. Still funny, but I'm just saying. I've noticed it. So I can do a pull request, but I want to make sure that that change is actually working. So we have a couple of test areas here. So I have a test channel over here, and I have a test channel on the Discord, and then I have a test Blue Sky and a test Mastodon. Oh yeah, it was just as simple as that. Doi. I don't know why it went so quick. Oh, it's probably because it's got the dependencies already. Alright. It did fix the security update there, so we're running 25.3. That's nice. And we do have the latest SQLite version in there. And import was successful. Cool. It's pulling in the settings check interval. Yes, this is really live. Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Wait, that was checking the .env file for that. Okay. Oh yeah, so it's the day after the election. And what was somebody else saying there? That's good to be a secure code. Yep. Random oh yeah, I already answered that. Your videos have finally convinced me to move to Linux, currently dual booting with Mint, loving it. Yeah. A lot of people, when they start using it, are kind of surprised just how far it's come. Now I have to introduce hosting to Stream Daemon. What do you mean you have to introduce hosting? But, yeah, I've been working on this project for a few weeks now, but it's been out. It's just in maintenance, basically, now. And there is a dependency checker as well, so if we have, dependencies that fall out, it'll update. But it is using the latest version of Python 3.14 that came out earlier last month. So I tried to build it as recent as possible. It is using a slim version of basically a Debian Docker to do all this. I could make an even more slimmed down one, but that would take a lot more work to just get the things that I need working. I may eventually go down that route, but that's a lot of work. You'd love a sea of Fanta? I have not had Fanta in years. I really haven't had soda much in years. Why is it going Docker Compose? I don't have Docker Compose on this. Yeah. You don't have Docker. There we go. So it's resolving. It's authenticated. I just set up a GitLab server at work on a Debian 13 host, packages, no Docker. Yeah, I mean, GitLab is nice, don't get me wrong. Oh yay, we fixed it. The thing is, like, don't get me wrong, I understand why people philosophically get a GitLab server or a Bitbucket so you can control your own stuff, but there's a lot of work there if you're doing CI/CD connections, because you're usually tying that into something like Jenkins, and then you have all these other things built in, which you can do. You can build a lot of that, but GitHub makes a lot of those things simplistic that even we were discussing at work for the DevOps and DevSecOps side of it. I was like, GitHub does a lot of this stuff and kind of does it better. But of course, it's a question of, do you really trust them? Hooray! Okay, so it's working in our test area. Because I actually love Doppler, because I have the dev version of the Doppler secrets over here. Oh no. It posted it twice. That's no bueno. Why did it post it twice? I probably won't be using CI/CD, mostly to house legacy Java code while I rewrite them in Rust. I mean, why go through the effort of rebuilding a whole GitLab if you could just do GitHub? Or even a SaaS version of Bitbucket from Atlassian. That just seems like a lot of work for that. Okay, we're gonna see if that posts again. I don't think it should, but the interesting thing is it ran it through the LLM twice. I can see because it's got two different messages here that are different. Interesting. Welcome to the world of tinkering and code and all that bullshit. And I know a lot of people may go like, well, why are you using an LLM to do this? And I tell people all the time, if you know what you're doing, this is the difference between spending days and weeks and sometimes months for a project versus hours and days. Like, I can tell you, if I had done this on my own, I'd have spent months getting it as far as I have. And instead, it's only been like, what, a month? With barely me touching any of it. And the only reason I found this bug was because I wanted to check the YouTube API quota and how much I could push it so I could actually have stream detection sooner, because now it's waiting like 5 minutes, but I wanted to see, could I adjust it to like 1 minute, and then it wasn't working. I'm also studying the TikTok API, and TikTok, their API is kind of janky, I'll be honest with you. Okay, why are you not doing the thing? I know it's been more than a minute. The grep looks right. Checking again and check with the, yeah, posting. Oh, there we go. I heard the alerts. I do need to clear this channel out. So I have been studying the matrix capabilities. Okay, so it's done that. Linux moment. This isn't a Linux moment. You can run Docker in Windows or Mac. This is a Docker moment. Got your Linux to install properly. So what was your issue? Because I know you were running into an interesting one. Oh yeah. Docker ps-a. Well, that'll do it. There's 3 different Dockers running. That's the issue. For some reason, I had to act like I was gonna switch to Linux, then magically it installed onto my SSD. Sometimes I just threaten my computer and it seems to work. Sadly, the threat worked too well and Windows uninstalled itself. Windows knew it had been defeated in the war. Okay, so we deleted 3 containers. I'm not complaining at all, though. Everything is running so much better. Yeah? It really does, so when you say a lot better, is it just basically, hey, your machine is actually, you know, performing better? I went from like 80% CPU usage when playing Warframe down to 30%. Oh yeah! Linux is extremely light on sources, and I notice Warframe is smooth on Linux. The one advice I will give you with Warframe, specifically with Steam, let me open mine so I can show you. Let me get to that menu. What the? That's a weird thing it was doing. If you go to settings, there's a... Hold on, let me reopen that. Steam's having weird behavior today. How safe is my local Alama? Can I run amok unhindered? Yeah. Minecraft basically doubled in FPS. You know, that's saying a lot if Minecraft was not running that well on your machine. So there is a setting that you should keep on when it comes to your box. So if you go to the download section on Linux, you see this section here where it says enable shader pre-caching should be enabled. That helps you get performance. Allow background processing of Vulkan shaders. Keep this on, especially for games like Warframe, because every time a game is going to get a new version, it's going to have to reprocess those shaders, and they take a while. So, oh yeah, so you enabled that on Warframe? Yeah. So once you have that on, as long as Steam is on in the background, the shaders for all of the games that you have installed will automatically get compiled. So you may notice your CPU is getting more usage throughout the day from Steam, but that's because when it notices it gets an update, it does that pre-caching for you. Yep. Okay, so you've done the changes I would recommend. The other thing I would recommend, now this isn't for like every version out there. So you're familiar with Proton, of course, if you're playing on Linux. There's a fork of it called Proton GE, Proton Glorious Egg Roll. Sometimes to get better performance, I drop this into Steam's compatibility folder, and then what I can do is I can tell the game to run Proton GE. So I'll just like pull up Skyrim's hold on. So we'll like pull up my library over here, and then you can see under the compatibility section, you can say force the use of, and you can see I have like Proton Glorious Egg Roll. I have several different versions here. What Glorious Egg Roll does is, so when Valve is pushing out Proton new versions, Valve is looking at it to be stable. So those regular hard-locked versions, except for experimental and hotfix, those are running on stable versions that may be a little bit behind. Whereas Proton GE is running a more bleeding edge of all the components inside Proton. So you can get some better performance and fixes for different games before it comes out from the regular Proton package. Minutes 30 of stream. What, have I been streaming for 30 minutes already? Yeah, I have. Yeah, so all you gotta do to install it, you just gotta grab the release version there. Grab the tarball over here, that tar.gz file. It's like a zip file. You extract it to wherever you need to go. So that depends on how you have Steam installed. So if you have it at a flat pack, you have to install, you have to put it into this folder here in compatibility tools.d in the path that Flatpak will make for you. There is a Snap version for those heathens that use Snap. Then there's the manual version, so if you're grabbing the Debian version, just the Debian file or whatever installer, and you're not running in a Flatpak, it's basically the same thing, but in a different folder. Why is that saying in Snap folder? That's weird, because it shouldn't do that, because where you should end up going... Now, you could also do this through the file manager, but it's usually... Was it Steam? Yeah, Steam. Hold on. Hold on. Oh. It's cd.steam, so it's one of the hidden files. And then, if I remember, it's in either bin... or bin 32, bin 64. And then... I think it's bin 64. No, maybe it's root. Shows you I've not done this in a while. Yep, it's .steam root compatibility tools D. So if I actually do an ls over here... you'll see all my versions here that'll correspond to the versions I showed. Using Flatpak because I was told Snap is really weird when it comes to Steam. Snap is just weird in general. I don't care for Snap. Snap really only works on Ubuntu. Flatpak just has a lot better compatibility. So Flatpak and Snap basically serve the same purposes of sandboxing and containerizing your application. Flatpak is more Linux distribution agnostic, whereas Snap is more of an Ubuntu thing. You can install Snap on Pop! OS, but I don't care for it. Oh, and Warframe basically doubled in FPS when on pure medium graphics. Yeah, a lot of my games I've noticed have a lot better performance on Linux. And that's without me enabling the preemptive kernel. Now, there was a lot of fixes also recently in Linux kernel 6.14, and I'm running 6.16. That's just the version Pop! OS is bringing in right now. So all I had to do was system updates, and it brought that in. There's been a lot of performance increases that I've actually noticed my performance on the same games slowly getting better over time without me having to upgrade my hardware. Although it could be a mix of the NVIDIA stuff. Although, speaking of NVIDIA, I came across an interesting development with NVIDIA drivers. NVIDIA... So I'm building that LLM server upstairs. What Linux distro am I using? I'm using Pop! OS. So the LLM server I built, it's running Ubuntu 24.04 server. There's no GUI on it. It's being built as headless. That way the GPU has as much VRAM as possible. Because whether you use Windows or Linux, it's going to use 1 to 2 gigabytes of VRAM for the desktop environment and everything there. That's just how it is. So the LLM server has an NVIDIA 5060 Ti in it and an NVIDIA 3050. I was thinking, hey, I need to install the NVIDIA proprietary drivers because they perform a little bit better, but the proprietary driver would only see the 3050, not the 5060 Ti. I had to install the NVIDIA open source versions of the same NVIDIA version, so I was installing the 580 drivers. And the open source drivers are required to work with the NVIDIA 5000 series. And now it sees both the 3000, the 3050 and the 5060 Ti. So it's really great that Linux is, NVIDIA is definitely going more with the open version of it. Okay, so we're completely rebuilding that Debian that Docker container. As you can see, it's running a version of Debian. It's running Debian Trixie over here, so Debian 13 in my Docker containers. I'm more of a Debian fan, or Debian type fan. So as we can see, it's doing that, the fix there for FTS5, bringing in the new SQLite version. It's actually compiling the SQLite version, as you can see over here. The reason being is that I'm grabbing the latest version from the project in order to do that, so that we remediate the vulnerability that we saw in the security checks earlier that were happening when we tested the Docker. And then see right there, it comes with 25.2 pip1 25.2, which is the Python package installer basically, and we had a vulnerability in there that we needed upgraded 25.3 to fix. So it's doing that. So we have that fixed in there in the build container. That's good. I want to do a test before I actually commit the pull request, and there we go. So it's built the Docker container over there. So the goal is basically, hold on, not that one, this one. We're trying to check this pull request over here. I have to close the other one. There's 2 pull requests. And we should see that count when it does its recheck go from 7 to 5, and all those other ones are lows. They're just unused imports and stuff like that. So Now I'm in the phase of trying to customize my Linux, and that's been a curve to say the least. Yeah, customizing your Linux is definitely interesting. I'm kind of a basic bitch, and what I do is I just install Pop! OS, install a couple of GNOME plugins that I need, really just the clipboard one, and then enable dark mode, and call it a day. I'm basic like that. I need my computer to mostly just work, and if it doesn't, you know, bother me, I just tell it, hey, do the thing and get the hell out of my way. I hurt my hand working out the other day. Obliterated models are dumb. What do you mean by that? So it's gonna sleep for 30 seconds and then do the Docker thing. Why are you doing that? Kali with Hyperlen makes it fun to use. Kali's not meant to be a daily driver. Do you know how many people have been in the Discord server like, oh, I'm gonna try daily in Kali, and then come back and say, you were right, I shouldn't do that. If you're gonna daily an operating system that has ethical hacking tools included, use Parrot OS. There's functionally no difference between the two, except Parrot OS is actually designed to be a daily driver. Okay, so time out of 10 seconds, run the Docker with the environment file that we have locally for testing. Okay, so we're disabling posting to do a check. Okay, didn't really show anything in that grep over there. For some reason, it's kind of dumb with grepping, which I, am like, why do you bother trying to grep it if, you know, it's not going to do the thing? And you only gave it... How do you not know my own code? You... God damn. Have you seen the cursor ID? Yeah, and I hate it. Look, if it doesn't have a version that we can check the code for and run on every operating system, ain't worth my time. Because if I remember, cursor is really just the best way to code with AI. And this is the other thing. I ain't paying for an AI, that. Okay? And if you download a version... Oh, they do have a Linux version now. Okay. But still, no. This isn't going to be nearly as customizable as VS Code is. It's one of the few times that I will actually say Microsoft actually did a better job. Mainly customizing so I can learn Linux in a more interactive way. Fair enough. I'm also more or less fine with the basic stuff outside of the terminal, which I changed, but the shell is giving me an annoyance. Yeah, bash will, bash, shell, ZSH, depending on what you're doing. It's definitely an interesting thing. It is a lot more intuitive, I will say, than PowerShell. What about a tool that detects human position based on the frequency of the router and worth it? Those already exist, and you don't have to do... they exist on different spectrums. I think MIT actually did one for Wi-Fi, but you can do it for pretty much any radio wave. They just use Wi-Fi because the spectrum is easier to... what's the word? It's a licensing thing. It's easier to get Wi-Fi spectrum for what you need because the ISM and Wi-Fi bands are pretty much available for anyone to transmit on. with the caveat being on the 5 gigahertz band, priorities given to radar. So if you happen to be detecting radar, you have to hop off and vacate that frequency immediately. I don't know why they built that into the spec. That's a whole other thing. And the problem is a lot of people don't even do the DFS properly. So, right. And this is why we test in dev and not in prod. I learned that mistake a long time ago. Vampire's never gonna let me live that down. The time I did not have error handling when I was starting to really start coding in Python. And, I flooded Mastodon with like several hundred posts in minutes. Yeah. All because Twitter pulled my API key, didn't let me know. This was when Elon was taking over and breaking shit left and right. And what had happened was, because I didn't have any error handling there, Twitter would fail, and then it would go through a loop. So it'd be like, post to Mastodon, post to Twitter, fail, loop. Post to Mastodon, try to go to Twitter, fail, loop. And it did that for so long. So there's a reason why now I have error handling a little bit better. But, yeah, that was a interesting lesson. There we go. So that fixed the 1 minute posting issue. So as we can see, 2010, 2010, 2010. Cool. And as you can see, the LLM is going through each of them with their own posts. So, hooray! We can call that a victory. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to bypass the rules here because I technically don't have anyone else to review the code, and I already did my own review. So we'll bypass and squash, have all my notes here of what happened, confirm bypass and squash, and then what you should see... Okay, so we got that. We're going to close this one because this one had the changes in the YouTube branch already. And I just do that for myself, even though I don't need to. And by the way, if anyone finds any issues or you know, suggestions, you're more than welcome to open an issue there. I already have a few there for my own notes. Because I eventually want to consolidate the matrix alerts. Oh. Hello. Hold on. Closed. What was that number? 109. And there we go. So it'll reference that branch. Oh wait, it was 107. There we go. So now we should see under my actions over here, it's building the Docker. So it's going to build and test the Docker out. And then in a little bit here, we should be able to pull the new version from the repo. Okay, I say it's an annoyance, then I just nail my next attempt. That's funny how it always happens. You complain about it, and then you figure it out. It's like when you feel better going to the doctor's office. Any idea of challenging project and red teaming to work on and have fun and gain new skills? I don't do red teaming too much, but I would check out Parrot CTFs. That's my buddy who actually does red teaming. He builds stuff around that. Here, I'll bring it up. Parrot-CTFs. He's got some free lessons over there for you to do red teaming. He's also trying to build some blue teaming stuff and has asked me for my input on a few things. So you can see there's a, trial version. It's not that expensive either. But, you have a few labs there to learn some new skills. I gotta tease him because it's like, dude, you have a 404 in your workshops. Ironically enough, I was missing a dependency. Yep, it'll always be like that. First lesson, fix this workshop. I'm gonna tease him right now. Talking about your CTFs and noticed you have a 404 on the workshop section. LOL, live fail. Live stream fail. What are you working on today? So I fixed a couple of vulnerabilities in the Docker build. Technically, they weren't that serious, but I wanted to at least address them. And a bug that I had for the timing in the Docker build, because apparently I accidentally hard-coded it. I just pushed the prod and forgot it was sitting in the same branch. My bad. If you could see how I'm teasing him right now. I was like, dude, I am literally explaining why we branch out and don't push to main, and he's like, use me as an example. He pushed a prod. That's why his site is out there. Oh. That one is not on our dev team. That was all me. Oh, I'm just teasing him right now. Told him to pull up your thigh highs and fix it. This is why it's fun to have friends in cybersecurity, because you can rib them all day for their little things. Look, I'm gonna mess up something one day, and y'all are never gonna let me forget it. Like Vampire never lets me forget about the time that I spammed my own Mastodon server. It'll happen. So just remember, if it can happen to me, and if it can happen to Parrot, it can happen to you. And don't look at, like, a lot of people beat themselves up when it comes to failure. Failure is a good learning opportunity. It's a good opportunity for you to look at something and say, whoa, I effed up there. Now, the real lesson is, are you able to learn from it and not repeat that mistake? Because if you repeat that mistake, that's on you. That is completely on you. Yeah, failure is just learning how not to do it. Exactly. So don't judge people by the mistakes they make. Judge them by if they learn from those mistakes. That's the more important thing you need to understand when it comes to that. Oh yeah, I probably should stop the Docker. Okay, so cool. It's ooh, I forgot it puts that in the terminal, so I can actually see the viewers in here. And how that'll actually work is if you look in, actually it should be updating anyway for streaming now. But the way that works is Discord has a feature that you can update the embedded cards. So Kick and Twitch have the ability to grab a screenshot from their API. Kick does it live whenever you pull. Twitch does it on an interval, I think, of like every 5 minutes when I was playing with it. YouTube only pulls the screenshot, the title screen you've set. So, but what the card will do is it'll update the category, the viewers, and if the title changes. So I actually get a live viewer count in there, so anyone hopping in is like, oh, how many are watching? But also, when the stream ends, this is why I do an end detection, it will end the stream and change the card. Which I think is a nice feature there. So these were all active cards before, and when this stream ends, they'll all be like, thanks for tuning in. And that way, you know, people can at least still go to the stream itself. Not the VOD. Wait, is it the VOD? I think it is the VOD. No, it'll just go straight to the, yeah, it'll just go straight to the channel, not that specific VOD. That might be an enhancement I can do later on, is I could dig into the API and see if I can do that. Okay, Docker stop. Christ, Linux feels so rewarding when things work out. Oh yeah, it's a lot easier to figure out the problems you have and then be able to understand what's going on. Whereas Windows feels like black magic voodoo that nobody really understands. There's still like so much behind the Windows environment that I know professionals who have been using Windows for years that don't understand it. And a lot of the things are still like held by people that worked at Microsoft, that they're still distilling knowledge of, like, oh, this thing does that. And we're like, well, why was there no documentation for that freaking thing? Whereas people complain about, oh, you're going to have to look up, you know, some troubleshooting on Linux here and there. The reality is, even on Windows, you're going to have to look up troubleshooting once in a while. Show me a person who's played a game on Windows and run into some kind of issue, and I will show you a person that at some point in their time using that computer, they've also had to Google how to troubleshoot a problem. The difference is, you will find fixes for just about every Linux problem. And the rare times that you do find a problem that hasn't been addressed, you can open a bug and bug report, and usually if you provide the information, people who work with you try to replicate the issue or do that. Stop spamming Matrix. I'm not spamming Matrix. Only the bot channel. That's the bot channel. I only posted 3 times. Okay, but I am gonna try to figure out how to consolidate these for Matrix. Hey, Vampire, you were complaining all this time. Why am I not talking about the hold on, I didn't have that open. Vampire, all this time, you were like, Chief, why are you not in the Matrix? You know, the Matrix is kind of neglected here. And then I suddenly, you know, hook in all these different, you know, mods and stuff that I'm doing, and I'm in there more. And now you're complaining that I'm talking too much in there. Ew. Does your project know how to do your work, or are those separate career paths? No. My project manager does not know how to do my work. Well, The architect I work with does, but the architect and I are like the only two people in our entire engineering team that literally know even how to use Git properly. I'm not even joking. Like, it's the funniest thing where you have the two senior cybersecurity engineers, you have the architects, you have the other regular cybersecurity engineer. Yeah, apparently I'm still not a senior cybersecurity engineer. That is a whole other pain in the ass that I've been dealing with and what I'm upset with where I'm working at. But we have those three people in there, and my architect and I talking about things, going back and forth about, you know, code structure, how do we want to manage the Git repos, how we should actually set up DevOps and DevSecOps for our team and all of that stuff, so that we get in line with the rest of the enterprise, start, you know, implementing Jenkins, like we do for the rest of the org and all this. And you can see the rest of the team just have their eyes gloss over, like, I understand none of this crap. And then he and I are the ones doing the infrastructure as code and stuff. Oh yeah, and I have another project that I'm going to be working on too. I already started some of the scaffolding code. It's called BoonTube Daemon. So this one is literally... Hold on. I think I have it. Yep. I have the scaffolding over here. I haven't tested it. See, if you look... under the README, big ass work in progress there. But anyway, what this is going to do is the idea is it's going to monitor YouTube and TikTok, and then host it to Blue Sky, Mastodon, Discord, and Matrix whenever a new video comes out. Now, why am I doing this when there are definitely tools that do this for YouTube? Well, barely any of them have Blue Sky integration. I have yet to find one that does. None of them really do it for Mastodon, from what I've noticed. Well, there's a couple other tools, but it's kind of convoluted workflow to get that going. There are tools to do it on Discord, but I've run, into issues, and my mods have seen this too, where it'll have... sometimes it won't even post when the video's been released. And the same tool that I was using, Me6, wouldn't even post when I was live streaming at a reliable interval, which is why I made my own live streaming alerts. But there's definitely nothing out there that works with Matrix. So I wanted to bridge those gaps. So BoonTube Daemon eventually is going to replace the Renegade BSD guy over here, which is Me6, basically. Every time there's a YouTube post, you know, even a short, or, you know, TikTok notification, it's going to replace that. It's going to replace all these notifications. And the idea being, it's no longer going to have this generic, hey, Chief Geek 3D just posted a video. I'm going to have the description run through an LLM, first Gemini, then once I get my local LLM server running, I will recode everything to have that improvement in there. And it'll just kind of give people the synopsis over there. But are you going to make a music bot for Matrix at this point? You joke? But I am making some other fun bots. I think I talked about this, oh yeah, I gotta bring that up later. That was a cool thing that, HBX showed up. Did. Consolidate Matrix alerts, BoonTube Daemon, yada yada yada. Did I mention it? I probably mentioned it in Matrix. Probably gonna scroll less. Hold on. Okay, no, that was a little later. Oh, yeah. Hold on, I just saw it. Nope. I jumped over. I hit the scroll wheel too much. There we go. I have some other fun bots for memes and stuff. And I'm also going to work on some threat feeds. So I'm also going to be rebuilding the whole cybersecurity news bot over here and the CVE news bot so that it'll work on Matrix and Discord for my own infrastructure with my own LLM to process that to give a synopsis of what goes on. Not that these haven't been unreliable, these have actually been decently reliable, but I think we can do better. But I also am going to make a bot for XKCD, because I found out XKCD has an API. So I actually came up with some ideas of what if we got an XKCD, it's like you could pull like the JSON code for a random one over there, and then it can pull up stuff like that. Maybe we'll have some like little OSINT tools that can be called upon inside the chat, you know, so you can like look up a domain's information. So I'm gonna work on some fun stuff so it'll be more interactive. But yeah, there's some fun things going. I'm being offered a project manager role, but I'm not tech, so I don't feel like I'll be a good PM. You can do... If you want to be a decent project manager, just understand the concepts of what need to be done. You don't have to be super technical, but you do need to at least understand the concept of what you're asking for. So, the joke is... Those who can't do, manage. And you sound like a person who can't do. No offense. What is your opinion on Clam AV? It's alright. It's not the greatest thing out there. I mean, there's by far better antivirus engines out there. But at least for scanning things as a base level in like a Linux file server or something like that, it's okay. I'd still prefer a good EDR, like a CrowdStrike on a Linux box or something like that. Because Clam AV doesn't really map to Stride or MITRE, which is a little important. Clam AV still runs off of definitions. And the problem with definition-based scanning is if you don't have a definition for that, you know, malicious software, it's not going to detect it. Whereas CrowdStrike and other EDRs like Microsoft EDR, XDR, not Microsoft Defender, they have a business version that's a little bit better. There's Sentinel, there's other ones out there. They don't look specifically for definitions of viruses. They look at what the program is actually doing, what it's opening, how it's behaving, and that's how they determine how to contain different things. So, the thing I would say to people is that antivirus is so passé. We should be moving away from antivirus and moving more to EDR, XDR. Traditional antivirus is not really that valuable anymore. That's the unfortunate reality of things. You want a Matrix bot checks Chief Skeef Hub. He's probably there at this point. It's getting there. The thing with Matrix, though, is making bots in there is a little bit different. So, in Discord, you can just have a webhook, which is how I did my things. There are webhooks in Matrix, but it's a little bit more involved. You have to create an account on a Matrix server, invite it to the room that you want it posting in. You don't have the ability to have rich embeds. Mina, what is ADR? HD? It's EDR and XDR. So that's endpoint detection and response and extended detection and response. So the idea of an extended detection and response at the high level is basically an EDR is looking at the behavior on the independent machine. An XDR is able to reference the overall collection of devices out in the entire network and see overall what's going on in the network. More or less. You know, like, it's usually tied into a SIM, System Information and Event Monitoring System. And then an XDR often is also tied into what we call a SOAR, which builds on a SIM, which is Scalable Orchestrated Automated Response. So basically what a SOAR does is when it sees certain detections that will be triggered by events found in the SIM through the logs, it will then do certain actions. So like a very simple thing that a lot of businesses do is they will check for devices that haven't been used in, like, say, 30 days, and then automatically contain them so that it can't be used on that installation. You'll have to basically reformat the device, but usually it's locked down in other ways, yada, yada, yada. So that way you can't as easily exfiltrate information on a network or stuff like that. But for personal use, For personal use, it might be a little bit overkill, but Bitdefender and Bitdefender kind of has those capabilities on the personal level. Microsoft Defender, kind of. Not really. The consumer version built in your computers. Unless you get the Microsoft EDR, XDR for businesses. Not really. Is there any free software for EDR, XDR, or SIM? Yes. Wazza. This is something I was looking at doing for myself, but I've decided I'm probably not going to do it, because eventually I want to save up enough money to put CrowdStrike in my lab, but Wazza can do all of that. So Wazza, you can host it on a server you have in the cloud or locally, and that's where my issue was, because I want to be able to have my XDR on my laptops be able to phone home. That would, what's the word? That would require me to put it in the cloud. But you need not too powerful of a machine, but you need some decent power behind it. Like, I think you need a 4-core CPU, and a few gigs of RAM. So let me see, Amazon Linux, Linux 23, CentOS, Ubuntu, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, so you need at least 2 gigs of RAM, 2 CPU cores, but you recommended 8 CPU cores and 4 gigs of RAM. And that's just for having a few devices. A single node or multi-node cluster. But yeah, the issue I have is I would have to throw that onto DigitalOcean, AWS, or something like that, and that's going to add costs up over time. So that's why I decided against doing it in my home lab, and I'd rather go to CrowdStrike, because I actually broke down the costs and everything, and it'd be like, one, I'd have to host this up in the cloud, which means I'm going to have to maintain it and everything like that. And for some people, it's fine, but I have so many different pieces and all that, I don't want to sit there and be on top of it. So I'd rather do CrowdStrike, because I also know CrowdStrike. I've used it professionally in my job and stuff. And I think it is a little bit expensive for CrowdStrike, I will be honest. Because if you go to CrowdStrike, what's their pricing? Pricing. Falcon Go. That's not too bad. Oh, that's per device. $60 per device. But that's the Falcon Go. Ideally, what I'd like to do is get Falcon Pro. That's $100 an endpoint. It's a nice little system. God, your site does not work with dark mode. Forced. And I will tell you this. Don't bother with CrowdStrike mobile. If you have an iPhone, it is a waste of time and money. We POC'd that at work, and I got so upset that management bought that without actually letting us POC it, because we had to come back and say, it's worthless. Here's the problem with it. We learned from another company we work with, who was already using it. if you contain a device on iOS through CrowdStrike, it can take a day or more to actually contain that device, and when you contain, you want it done fast. On Android, you got a lot more features. For Android, it's nice. But also in a business setting, all this is basically doing, for the most part, aside from the Android, because Android, there's more protections, but it's basically proxying all of your information for analysis there for malicious domains. And apparently it can get disabled if you have Apple, the Apple privacy thing, iCloud privacy, whatever. I forget the thing's called. It's so not worth it. But, yeah. So, yeah. But also, I just realized I don't think it comes with the SIM in there, so I'd probably have to, yeah. I may have to rethink that idea. Because then I'd probably have to get the SIM, which probably would mean I'd probably dump all that data into... I could probably do Grafana as the SIM. That's another product that's good to know, is Grafana. You can actually make dashboards with this. And they have a free cloud tier, by the way. Which is really great if you want to play around with it. And you can also host this in your own lab. There's nothing wrong with doing that. So you have a free version over here. The cloud version only has 14 days of retention for logs. But they have a bunch of open source stuff, and you can go to get the template. What about those new firewalls, next-gen firewalls? Are there any free open source alternatives? Yeah. So here's the thing. CrowdStrike's firewall is really just using Microsoft Windows Firewall and configuring it. That's more or less what it's doing, from if I recall correctly. Now, on the Linux side of things, I think it's just hooking into IP tables. I have to double check that. Yeah, so... But for, you know, the open source side of things, I mean, really, that would more or less cover a lot of your bases here. And then there's really nothing, you know, all that new about a firewall, which is basically just lock everything down through IP tables or UFW on the Debian side to make it simple with uncomplicated firewall. Although BSDs are a little bit better. Which is why I like pfSense. Their network stack's a little nicer. That's the one thing I really don't like in Linux is, well, compared to BSD, it's still better than Windows, is Linux's network stack is IP tables and NetFilter. Whereas that's all consolidated inside of FreeBSD to PF. And PF is a lot easier to work with and parse out and troubleshoot and all that stuff. You're spoke on this. What are your thoughts on the FFmpeg drama? I'm not familiar with that drama. Maybe I will deploy a WASA sim for the price of what's going on. I just have to determine where I want that run. Well, I'm just curious. So the indexer. Okay, was a indexer. I'd probably roll that on Amazon Linux 2023 if I was doing AWS. The indexer is highly scalable. Ah, I remember. It's not just was a server. You need the indexer too. So you're gonna need 3 different components. You need the indexer, you need the server, and you need the dashboard. full text search and analytics. It stores alerts generated by the WASA server. Yeah, so you're gonna need these 3 components before you can even get the agents installed on your machine. But it is a nice little setup. What makes BSD firewalling better than Linux? Simplicity, in a way. Wait. Is the Twitch not bringing alerts in? I'm not ignoring Twitch. There's been no messages on Twitch. Look, man. I'm not ignoring anyone. What's up, Kara? But yeah, BSD firewalls are just, it's a little bit nicer, as well as it's stateful. So what is a stateful firewall? Well, simply put, IP tables is a little bit more rigid. You want to speak out, you have to basically allow it and then to come back in, all that. Whereas in PF, if I initiate a connection, it'll monitor that state and then can allow traffic as I need. And it's a lot more flexible for the firewalling rules. Like for networking stuff, BSDs are a lot nicer than Linux. But yeah. I'm wondering why YouTube is... Wonder why YouTube is seeing issues. Interesting. Not Linux related, but do you have any suggestions of switching, having to switch from fiber to satellite? Ew. Why would you go to satellite from fiber? There's a lot. Your stuff broke. What stuff broke? The last message I saw in the... Like, I'm looking at the Twitch official chat. I'm literally looking at not the consolidated chat window over here that brings in the 4 platforms, you know, from Kick, Twitch, YouTube, and TikTok. I'm looking at Twitch's own dashboard right now. I don't see any messages I haven't addressed. Install won't bring the price down to put on local fiber. How are you paying $500 a month for fiber? Those are business internet prices. I mean, here's the reality. If you go to satellite, you're gonna have latency. It's just the reality. You're gonna have latency. There's just no way to get around it. So that's about all I can say is you might get bandwidth, but you're gonna have latency. And depending on where the satellite is, the connection, and also the geo, what is it, the solar activity, because the sun will literally affect your ability to use satellite internet. That's just how it is. It affects all radio transmissions. Between the, what is it, the A index and the K index, we learned all about this in the ham radio. But yeah. It was like, we have 1 more month and he's looking at Starlink, and I'm like, please, no. Well, Starlink is not really all that much cheaper. I mean, it is cheaper than 500, but Starlink, you still have to buy the hardware. You're gonna have the latency. So if you look at, you know, let's say a residential plan. Okay. Why can't you just give me a price? For RVs, I mean, if you're traveling, yeah, satellite's okay. But if you're talking about a fixed location and you have better options, satellite is not a great option. It's okay as a backup option. Like, but I would even go to cell internet before I would satellite internet. So if you're in a fixed location, have you tried looking at, like, T-Mobile hotspots? They have the 5G plans. If you have 5G around there, I mean, it's still gonna have latency, but you're gonna have better performance than a satellite connection. Better performance, like, equal to a good fiber. You're not gonna get equal. That's just the reality. You're never gonna get equivalent performance to a hardline connection from a wireless connection. That's true whether we're talking about Wi-Fi versus Ethernet, or even satellite or 5G internet versus copper, let alone fiber. That's just the reality of it. That's physics. Verizon home internet is good. I use it. Verizon, they have an option too. Cellular's latency increases a lot under load. Well, so does satellite. If more people go to satellite, the satellite's also going to be overloaded. The thing about satellite too is that the ability to balance the load on satellite is not as great as, say, a cellular. Because cellular, you know, you're probably going to still have other towers around you to balance it out, whereas in a satellite, you're not going to have as many that it can just say, hey, you over there, take on some of my load. It can to an extent, but you have to have line of sight. Oh, for $30, and I use it as a balancer for slow stuff. I have a T-Mobile hotspot myself. A lot of people don't know this. T-Mobile has a backup internet plan, like 50 gigabytes a month, and I pay like $20 a month for it. It is solely there, connected to my PF Sense, that if my main internet ever goes down, and I have 10 seconds that I am not getting a ping to Cloudflare, it will fail over to cell. And then, if I finally get connectivity on the main network again, it will flip back. So it's been useful for the few times that the internet's been knocked out. Now, the issue, though, is if you have an up-down situation, I've literally had to walk over to my firewall and just unplug the modem until I see that it's better. Backup is $20 too much when it was $10. It was nice. Inflation, my dude. The Verizon is limited, much nicer. Well, the idea is I shouldn't have to use the cellular data at all. On average, I maybe have at most 3 days per year that my internet actually is bad enough that it has to switch over to the cell network. So when you think about that, I only need enough data for that to work. Hey, thank you for the follow, Babu Chick. I think that's how you say it. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Welcome to the clan, happy hacking. When you use failure, how do you handle the IP change? You can't. It's just going to have to reestablish all the connections. Now, most things will just accept the fact that an IP's come over and will establish new links. So, like, if you're doing a streaming service, for example, like Hulu, you're not even going to notice a difference, honestly. YouTube, same thing. Now, if you're doing a video game, or say a video call, you might notice a blip. In some cases, it might have a full drop and you have to call back. It depends on the setting and the sensitivity of that specific application. But a lot of video conferencing stuff is designed to actually handle that because they also work on cell phones. So like Teams, Zoom, those all also are designed to work on cell phones, and people are getting on and off Wi-Fi networks and hopping over to their cell networks all the time doing that. I'm literally in meetings where people are like, yeah, I'm walking out of the building to take care of the network issue over at the building over here, leaves the company Wi-Fi, gets on their cell phone's connection, you see the little blip, they come back. Hulu doesn't handle IP changes well. They change it due to piracy stuff. I haven't seen an issue. Are IPv6 cheaper to buy and own? What would the cost be for an IP for lifetime? So you don't really own the IP for a lifetime per se. It is cheaper because IPv4, the addresses are exhausted. Last I checked for my buddy that ran an ISP, I think it's like thousands of dollars for IPv4 blocks now. Because they're a very finite resource. There's what, only, if I'm not mistaken, 4.3 billion IP addresses, which I know sounds like a lot. But when you think about how many devices there are on the internet, that ain't that much. IPv6, definitely cheaper to own, but the issue is IPv6 is a pain to work with. I'm just going to be honest. There's a reason why a lot of people haven't really switched over to it. Since anything UDP can be resumed, but TCP sockets are a problem. Yeah, well, because it's the handshake and everything. $25 for a month for IPv4. Yeah, but if you're gonna buy it, like, I forgot what the site is my buddy said that they basically auction these off on, but yeah. But the question is, I mean, you could also own your own IP, have your own, ARN, all that stuff. And, like, there was an interesting concept where a buddy of mine worked for an ISP, and they had fiber internet, and because they also were a wireless internet service provider, theoretically, if you were going over the same carrier, you could have the same IP address on your wired and wireless connection, that if your wired connection ever went down, it'd fail over to the wireless internet provider they had, but the IP wouldn't change. What does that environment manager use again? For what? Which environment are we talking about? Because there's a few things I play with. I want to make sure I'm talking about the right thing. It's called Anycast, having the same IP everywhere, more than 2 servers. Yeah, but yeah, sounds like a lot of engineering to make the IP change happen. Realize if you need a static IP, couldn't a dedicated IP VPN work? Yes and no. You're overcomplicating a problem, though. Because then you have an issue. Because that... Can you do it? Yes. Should you do it? Not in all cases. Oh, the secrets manager. I use Doppler. So... And by the way, I am talking to them right now. There may be some sponsored content coming up from them. But I genuinely like their product. Like, straight up. I've used AWS Secrets Manager. I've used HashiCorp Vault a little bit. I know how to work with them. Doppler is so fucking easy and wonderful. But yeah, Doppler, I'd recommend them all day. They have a free plan if you want to run it for yourself for 3 users. It's great. And of course, you got the team and enterprise plans. But yeah, it's freaking wonderful. I love their stuff. The only complaint I ever had about them was their documentation when I first started using them, but they fixed that issue. They cleaned it all up. It's a lot easier to know. Do you know of a self-hosted solution? There are self-hosted solutions, but this is one of those things where I generally don't really like to use a self-hosted solution, because if you can't access your secrets manager and you have all these projects relying on them, you're creating a lot more of a potential problem. Whereas, you know, I know they exist, don't get me wrong, but I know Doppler, I know AWS, I know HashiCorp Vault, they all have redundancies. So if one data region doesn't work, it'll fall over to another data region. You may notice a little bit of extra latency, but it's still gonna work. Yeah, there is Vault Warden, but I know, is Vault Warden able to do secrets management? I think it's just password management. There is Bitwarden Secrets Manager. There's been a lot of requests here for Vault Warden to be a secrets manager, but yeah, I don't really see one. Hold on. No, secrets are not that latency sensitive, but let's say you have the situation where you have a Kubernetes cluster and, you know, time is of the essence to build a Docker, or not Docker, but, you know, the Kubernetes, you know, scale up, scale down. A little latency may delay certain things, but in most cases, it's not going to matter as much. Thought Secrets Manager is a password manager. No! No! They sound similar, but they're different. A password manager manages your personal password accounts. A secrets manager is meant for programmatic access. So what I mean by that is API keys, things like that. And a secrets manager also has the capability to automatically rotate the secret if it can sync to a service, so you can rotate that key automatically. They are very different. Do they have a lot of overlap? Yes. Could you use, you know, a password manager as a secrets manager? Yes, but it won't work the way that we're talking about, because you're going to have it call in. So like with AWS, with Doppler, HashiCorp Vault, I basically give it permission, whether through an access token, IAM roles or permissions in AWS, things like that, to access certain secrets. And whatever that secret is in there will be called upon whenever it needs to be pulled. So when you look at my Docker container, as we were doing this, like here, I'll launch this Docker so you can see. All right. Docker run Stream Daemon latest. All right. We're going to have it run. Oh, right. I forgot I got to throw the command down. What's the command for it? Oh, yeah. Docker run. We'll just call that. And then remove these guys at the end. I have to have it called the environment file because the environment file has the token in there. So you see right here, Doppler connection successful, found 23 total secrets. So it pulls those secrets in, then it uses it to authenticate to Twitch, and then it will use it to authenticate into YouTube with the API that's set up there. Kick, same thing. Mastodon, same thing. Blue Sky, it's using an app password, not an OAuth token, so it pulls that in, and then it actually finds out the roles and everything like that. But I can also change it in the Secrets Manager. So let's say when I do this, I quit that for a second. I'm going to log into my Doppler so I can show you for a second. Alright, so I've got my project over here. Stream Daemon, okay? I've got my secrets in dev and prod. Let's say I create a staging one. I can change my environment here. Okay? These same secrets names are in dev and staging, but I could have a different secret value for each one. That's how, when I create, when I run it on my local machine, I have it running with the dev token. When I have it running on my Raspberry Pi, it's running the production token. Same config, calling the same secrets name from the same account, but a different section of it. And I don't really have to do much. I'm just trying to manage multiple servers at once without going from server to server manually. There's a few ways. But yeah, this you're looking at a secrets manager. Doppler is a lot better of a system where you could literally create different environments here. So let's say, go back to Stream Daemon for a second. All right, let's say we wanted to have a different config in each project. I could create a new branch config there. So we could have staging, we'll just call this 1, okay? Okay, that actually needs to be at least 2 characters long. We'll call this staging stream live, okay? Okay? This can, you know, then have its own separate set of secrets over here. And all I have to do is grab the token, which can be generated under the access section over here. Okay? So if I generate a service token here, that's the only thing I have to drop into my server that I need to pull the secrets from. You can also use Doppler CLI to do it too, but the service token is the easiest way. And the cool thing about it is if the token ever does get compromised, revoke it, generate a new one, drop that token in its place, redo it. Can you please make the browser window fit? It fits on the, I'm sorry, but TikTok doesn't let me, TikTok is what, 9:16? Twitch, Kick, and YouTube are 9:16. So it's just the way it is. And if you scale it down, it's not going to look right even for TikTok. So if you want to get a better view of it, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to go over to Twitch or Kick or YouTube. Although the YouTube's kind of having some issues, though. But yeah. But yeah, so a secrets manager is totally different. Because a lot of people that are developers or develop products, what they often do is they'll create a local environment file. And that is something you should avoid doing in production. Because if your secrets ever do get compromised, it's gonna be a nightmare to go through and change all those things. Did I accidentally close my Twitch window? I think I did. Kick.com. Pull up my info. Yeah, my pleasure. and we'll eventually have some sponsored content coming out from them, so we'll definitely be dedicating more time into Doppler and diving into it, so you can see just how well it works. Like, seriously, out of all the secrets managers I've used, it's one of the best one. It is the best one I've used for my own needs, like to the point I've begged them to start using it at work. But they're too into the AWS environment. And you can use it with everything else. And thank you for the follow, ECHBJ. Appreciate it. But yeah, so secrets managers are something you should definitely build into any project that you're planning to have connected to the internet that's going to be accessing, well, sensitive info. Because what you can do is you can rotate the secret at the high level with Doppler without having to log into the server. So anytime I want to roll a new key for Twitch or Kick or YouTube for my Stream Daemon, or, you know, change the webhook or anything like that, I just change it in there. CyberArk Conjure. I haven't played with CyberArk. Like, I have literally not played with any of theirs. Hold on. I'm just taking a look at their stuff. So... it's kind of similar. Git clone, CyberArk, pull the Docker image, generate the master key, define policy. Well, I will tell you this, it's a lot easier to set up Doppler because it looks like this is self-hosted, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see, hold on. If I can poke at this... yeah. Alright. Let me see. Okay, so we're pulling from here. As soon as I saw it was a GitHub, I'm like, yeah, we can probably see. So it is pulling a Docker image. Can you generate your own Docker image? No, this is just the quick start version. Okay. Open source software suite. So if I'm not mistaken, this is more of a self-hosted situation. You will learn how to store your secret. Login is Dave. Dave is the human. When you're Docker compose, exec conjure, login. Okay. To verify that you're logged in successfully, the terminal returns. Generate a secret. Store the secret. Run the demo app. To fetch a secret from Conjure open source using the REST API. It's doing a lot of the same things, but you have to set up so much of the infrastructure around this. That's the issue. I'm not hating on it, I'm just saying there's a lot more involved to get this up and running, and then it's one more thing you're going to have to worry about securing. You want to be a hacker, but you don't know how. Okay, so go into your kitchen, get a cutting board, and just get a knife and start hacking away. I'm sorry. The reality is, people need to get away from the term of thinking of hacker as this one, you know, term. A hacker can refer to so many different things. Like, you know, I've been hacking code together. There are life hacks, all of that. So when you're talking about, like, what do you want to be? A penetration tester? An ethical hacker? You gotta be specific there. But either way, everyone starts out at zero, and it's a matter of you gotta teach yourself and put your nose to the grindstone. Well, my first advice would be learn your basics of like networking, how the network administration and systems all tie together and everything like that. And then you can start understanding the ways to attack things. The best people in penetration testing and ethical hacking, they came from a background of blue teaming usually. Because I've met a lot of people that just do, basics of networking. Now, that just gets you a start. Because then you gotta networking is just the fundamental building block you start at. Because then you gotta understand, what are you trying to do? Windows, Linux, FreeBSD, Mac vulnerabilities. You trying to get into Cisco, Palo Alto, Juniper, those different things. And then there's like, different attacks. You've got like SYN floods, buffer overflows, things like... There's so many different ways to go about this. So... there's a lot to it, so my advice would be learn how the system's built, learn how they're administrated, learn how they're configured, because the majority of vulnerabilities that are found and compromises are because of misconfigurations done by humans. The human is always going to be the weakest link. Point blank. Like, y'all heard about the Ernst & Young compromise? So if you aren't familiar with Ernst & Young, this gets us into a review on stream stuff. Did I not put this in? God damn it. I put it in. I posted this on somewhere else. Just got my UB5C NFC and I'm feeling stealthy. No, that's not a stealthy thing. That's more like you're feeling secure. But yes. That's good to have. I love my YubiKeys. For codecs, I had to get WSL, and WSL is always on. Is that right? Not really. It's there. It's in the background ready to go. But it's not operating in the sense like it's always computing and all that. You can have multiple WSL sessions open. It's basically what you have to understand is WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux, is a virtual machine. It's running on Microsoft Hyper-V. That's what you really need to understand about it. So just like any virtual machine, it's there, it's installed, but it's not always running. But Hyper-V underneath it is always running. Okay, let me grab the link. Okay, so there was a compromise that happened recently. EY, Ernst & Young, exposed 4 terabytes of a SQL Server backup on Microsoft Azure. Now, for those of you that don't understand why this is so severe, Ernst & Young is basically one of the big 4. The big 4 auditing firms. So when people want to go get their security assessed, so if you've been in security long enough, you've probably seen like SOC 2 Type 1, SOC 2 Type 2. Basically, they're one of the companies that goes in and audits the company to get them certified to be SOC 2 or SOC whatever compliant that they're trying to go after. But this is a case of the auditor wasn't auditing their own systems. So you shouldn't ever trust the auditor. As I said somewhere else, what happens when the auditors fail to audit themselves? According to reports, Ernst & Young, one of the big 4 auditing firms, accidentally exposed 4 terabytes of data from a Microsoft Azure SQL Server backup, including sensitive client information. For an industry that prides itself on compliance, governance, and risk management, incidents like this highlight a brutal irony. Even the firms tasked with assessing other cybersecurity postures can overlook their own fundamental controls. This isn't about pointing fingers, it's about recognizing that trust doesn't replace verification. No organization, no matter how large or reputable, is immune to configuration mistakes, exposure risks, or simple human error. If anything, this should remind us all. Security must be continually validated, not assumed. Audit your auditors. Even trusted systems deserve zero trust. Adding my UB for MFA for my Ubuntu laptop because I'm Delulu. Don't do that. I mean, you can do that, but don't do that. You're gonna cause yourself more headaches. I do the MFA for my accounts and stuff. But yeah, and make sure you got a backup YubiKey because you should always have at least 2 YubiKeys. Make sure all your YubiKeys, regardless of how many you have, are registered to all the same services, because if and when you happen to lose or break your YubiKey, you're gonna want to have a backup. Otherwise, it'll be a very sad day. But yeah, Ernst & Young, they had a compromise, and that was all a result of misconfiguration. Heard about the new OpenAI tool that works like security researchers? Yes, I have, and it's not ever, at least in the foreseeable future, going to replace security people, because here's the thing. Even the security tools that I'm looking at building with LLMs in there, like for those of you that are not familiar, I have on my GitHub, we're gonna get into those videos in a second. GitHub. So I have a program called Typo Sniper. This is for domain typo squatting automations. So the idea eventually here is I want to create a pipeline. That's also partially why I want to have CrowdStrike. So I can use CrowdStrike's API to push the domain typo squats results. I hit back button too far. But if I go to my results over here, I've got some sample data over here. Or hold on. I'll show you an example of a report, because I put some sample data in here because I knew people were going to ask. Okay, so this is sample data of me hitting EFF.org for all the typo squats over here. So imagine, if you will, I have an LLM that actually goes out and not only checks the URL scan, because according to, all the methods I'm using for fuzzing to get the different, domain, bit squatting, addition, insertion, replacement, various vowel swap, all these different ones, these could be false positives. They could be completely unrelated. So like the EFF.org is legitimate. That's what I'm looking for. But there could be something like... Okay, here we are. That site does not load anymore. That's fun. Okay, there was one that I found the other day that was legitimate. We're gonna go through the others. Nope, not that one. Well, anyway, the idea being that some of these are not actually true positives. They're false positives that happen to get picked up. So I'd like an LLM to actually go through and say, this looks like it's actually impersonating this, target site's website because of these different factors in there. But I'm still going to have a human in the loop to verify those false positives. All it's going to do is simplify the initial research time so it can, the analyst can go through, check out if that is a true positive or a false positive. Even when it comes to me making my TTS server eventually, that's going to have LLM processing, I plan to have a human in the loop. So yes, I'm going to have an LLM look at, is there going to be, harassment, slurs, things like that being used to censor out whatever, but I'm still going to have the final approval go to a channel that moderators have to then review the TTS requests and then approve or deny them before they get allowed on my stream. So yeah. What about the AI that's based on data humans created? Heard about the new AI? Yeah, well, the other thing is also, remember, the old adage when it comes to computers, garbage in, garbage out, that still applies to AI. If it's trained on garbage, it is garbage. I'm building a DOS/Windows 98 machine. No thought of networking it ever, but wondering about Linux. I mean, that's a fun little retro build project. I know plenty of people that do DOS and Windows 98 builds so that they can play old games and on the original ways rather than using DOS box. Because if you do want to play retro games and you don't care about the hardware, you can use things like DOS box. There was one day I was drinking a whole bottle of wine and we played Oregon Trail from 1998 and I got really drunk, and that was also the day that, I didn't get drunk, I got tipsy, and then, TikTok banned me for a day because I was harassing the AI in the game, and apparently that's bullying. Playing some Super Tux Kart. I haven't played that in a minute. You might triple boot. I have a laptop with BIOS power on P-word, Lux P-word, user password, and soon YubiKey too. Okay, but why? I laugh everything, oh, you laugh every time I see your videos about Arch. Just getting super involved in Linux. Yeah. IRC is better than Discord. Okay. Who really uses IRC really anymore, though? That's the honest reality. And have you tried using IRC on the go on your phone? It's not that easy. It's not that fun. IRC was great when it was around. Don't get me wrong. I'm not hating on IRC, but it's one of those things where the world is kind of moving on. Look, AOL Instant Messenger was also great too, don't get me wrong. Fun with my laptop and tinker with different encryptions. I mean, you have fun with it. It's not really different encryptions. That's more authentication than encryption. So you're playing with different authentication mechanisms. Okay. So my mods and stuff had some videos that we wanted to check out for the review on stream section. So let's do this. Okay, hold on. Let me make sure the audio is working. Okay, we got combined. Okay, cool. So what was this that HBX sent? Multiple senior Trump officials are now moving into military bases, but why? Jeez. You know, if you're afraid of the actual people, that says more about you than the people around you. What the? What? $4,600 a month for your residence, and most of us out here complaining about it. There's like $1,500 rents and stuff. Talk about being out of touch with the average American. I'm just saying. Oh, hold up. I just realized you're not getting audio. I should have checked that first. Sorry about that.
Here's what we know.
There we go. Had to reset the combo.
Senior officials in the Trump administration have relocated to military bases in the Washington, D.C. area.
The only downside about IRC is the lack of end-to-end encryption available. Yeah, because it was before a lot of that came out.
Stephen Miller and his family recently moved into military housing after their neighbors in Arlington, Virginia protested their presence.
You think they will ever beat AES XTX?
Their home for
yeah, they will.
$3.75 million.
It's only a matter of time.
Christy Noem is residing in
we have to look at post-quantum encryption.
Base Anacostia Bowling, a home typically used by the Coast Guard commandant. A Department of Homeland Security spokesperson said Noem is, quote, paying fair market rent
That's
for the
an open BSD.
Secretary
it
of State
exists.
Marco Rubio and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth are both living on Fort McNair's General's Row near Buzzard Point. Rubio reportedly lives there alone, while his family remains in Florida. A Defense Department official said Hegseth pays around $4,655.70 per month for his residence. Army Secretary Daniel P. Driscoll has also moved into military housing at Joint Base Meyer-Henderson Hall, which he shares with Navy Secretary John Feeling. Feeling's Washington home was damaged in a fire earlier this year, according to congressional staff familiar with the matter. National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard had also considered relocating to Fort McNair earlier in the year, though the plan did not move forward due to limited space, The Atlantic reported.
I don't understand why they're moving to military bases. Shouldn't that be for a military? Like, this feels like a good enough for thee, but not for me situation. I'm just saying. Oh, it is quantum resistance. Well, there'll always be better encryption. Computers will always get better, and so will the ability to beat them and secure them.
While it is not uncommon for some defense and national security officials to reside in military housing, experts say it is unusual for so many senior civilian leaders to do so at the same time.
Makes you wonder just how much of the military is just kind of like, nah. Okay, so, Vampire shared this. It's a YouTube short. Stop Killing Games has finally reached the UK Parliament.
Steam sent.
Oh, Stop Killing Games. You know, the same thing that, what's his face? Pirate Software could not accept he was wrong about.
Censorship is getting out of control, where this small indie studio just had their game rejected for the dumbest
what?
reason. You see, Red Pine Lake is an upcoming survival horror game where the studio behind it was looking forward to launching the game on Steam, and after paying the non-refundable submission fee, it turns out that Steam is refusing to publish the game on their store because of this one image on their cover art saying that it's too mature to be used on the site. I'll let you be the judge of this picture. The game takes place on a lake, and the character's just wearing a one-piece. But the direct response that the developers got from Steam was that a woman's behind is NSFW in nature regardless of what she's wearing, and that's why it got rejected. Which is not only a wild statement to make, but there's also so many other games out there that show way riskier content in.
I can think of so many other games. Like, isn't there like Stellar Blade and like, oh, let's hold up. Let's check this out. All right. Actually, you know what? We should do this through Steam. All right, let's look up the store, all right? They're probably right. There's like so many risky ones. Risque ones. So let's, what is it? Stellar Blade. I think it was. Mature rating, okay, let's view the page. Like, right there, what? You're telling me, like, this skin tight, you know, aesthetic right there. That's not, you know, risque enough. Oh, look, we're showing, like, what looks like kind of, no, that's a skin tight thing. Is that booty I'm seeing there? I don't know, because, like, yep, that's booty. That's booty. See? So, like, that's Stellar Blade. GOG will take the game, I bet. Oh, yeah, of course they will. But, like, that's just Stellar Blade, okay? Maybe Nier. Which I've still been wanting to play that game, by the way. Okay. I don't know. Oh, wait, she's got a little skirt on. Okay. But look at that. You see some thigh. Can maybe make out some booty. It's distant, but there's booty. Oh, look. You get kind of an upskirt shot there. Up. You know? Like, what the hell is Steam thinking?
have no problem at all. In
Oh, it's
fact,
definitely on my list to
Steam's
play. I just have
rules,
so many
the
other games to
thumbnails
play,
and cover art
too.
for a game must have PG-13 appropriate artwork, which this definitely falls under. And now the studio's actually taking a stand and refusing to redesign or change the cover art, saying that this is just a slippery slope of censorship, where apparently even bathing suits are considered too spicy for video games on Steam.
What the
Steam
hell?
Censorship is getting out of control, where this small indie studio...
We're talking about a bathing suit. A woman wearing a bathing suit. And like, let me look at this for a sec, okay? It's, what is it? Red Pine Lake. Hold on. What is it called? Your thoughts on Linux for auditing on Ubuntu? It's a thing. Okay, so they have this Kickstarter over here. I think this is for it. Okay. Like, straight up, I've seen worse on Disney Channel. I'm not even joking. It's not even a bikini. It's a one piece. I'm not saying like a bikini would, be, bad and, even cause a concern for that. It's a one piece. She's in a lake. What the hell? Okay. Anyway, moving on. What's this? YouTube is restricting more gaming videos now.
So YouTube's latest censorship update is going after gaming content specifically, and now a lot of videos are about to get restricted. See, according to their new safety policy,
Well, chat, I'm effed.
YouTube's AI moderation system is now going to scan every gaming video that gets uploaded, and even the ones that are already on your channel, to start flagging for these three categories. With number one being gambling content that's tied to real-world value, so apart from the obvious online casinos, this can also hit Counter-Strike 2 case openings since there's a random chance mechanic involved, and even NFT games that have a loot box system because there's real money being staked. But the crazy part is that even fake gambling videos can also get flagged, since YouTube is also going after social casino content. And number three is going to hit GTA 6 the hardest, because YouTube is also going to censor gameplay videos that show mass violence against realistic human characters or non-
Do you know how many video games that entails? I mean, if you think about it, you've got GTA for sure. You could argue you could go on Elder Scrolls and do the same thing. You could do the same thing in so many different games and just start running amok and ruining things. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's some Star Wars games that if you want to go on the Sith line, you gotta basically, kill people that are not supposed to die. This feels like the net neutrality BS that we went through. No, that's a totally different thing. Net neutrality is basically that all traffic must be treated equally. This is an issue of... We had these Karens a few months ago. Shit, what was it? Australian Karens censoring games. What was that? There we go. Australian campaign. I can't remember the name of that studio, the organization. Crap. What was that? Chat, what was that organization with the Karens from Australia? That Collective Shout, that was it. Had to look up through a few things. Collective Shout. These Karens have caused such a crazy, fear amongst the gaming studios. Because they went and, lobbied to Visa and MasterCard to say, oh, yeah, they're allowing, PDF related stuff and, you know, all these other things from these Karens that don't even understand gaming. And, like, it's caused the whole thing to go in a tizzy that, like, Steam and Google that owns YouTube and, like, all these, you know, gaming platforms are so worried about, you know, having their things cut off that they're actually, you know, censoring themselves so damn hard when these, you know, they should have told these Karens in the first place to go F off. And this is why I also hate the payment processors we have now, because we really only have Visa and MasterCard for the majority of the world's payments. They've also gone around and censored a bunch of anime to the point that apparently Japan, the country of Japan, their government is getting involved from what I've seen because it's affecting their culture and their ability to conduct business. There have been businesses that have literally shut down because of these Karens. Will they actually be effective in censoring? Will Gabe let this happen? You must be behind if you don't already know that this was a result of the Karens already doing their battle. It's not an issue of Steam letting it happen. It's that this is above Steam because these Karens went to Visa and MasterCard and got them to, you know, tell Steam, GOG, and all these other, you know, places to stop putting it out there. And you really should look into these Karens as well, because they're not as well-meaning as people think. Like, they have had, they've spoken out of two sides of their mouth so much. Steam should just come up with a monetary processing system. I don't think you understand what a processing system entails, and think about this. When you go buy something on Steam, what are you using? You're using either a Visa or a MasterCard in most cases. It's not an issue of Steam making a processing system. It's that the system we have to do all the payments to all the processors has this oligopoly that has controlled everything, that if they say they don't like something, oh, no, we're not going to deal with it. Even though it's completely legal in whatever countries desire it, they have too much power that they should not be able to restrict people's ability to sell any goods they want just because you don't agree with it. I only say if it's illegal, should they go after it? If it's illegal, if it actually is harming kids, by all means, do that. Molvad does cash. Do you realize how inconvenient cash is? I'm serious. I'm not trying to say this to be mean. You are really naive if you think that cash on the internet is a viable replacement at scale. Because when you do Molvad with cash, it's not an instant system. I'd rather use Monero on stream. That's a more viable system. Cryptocurrency is a more viable system. Unfortunately, the crypto bros have ruined the whole idea of what cryptocurrency was actually meant to be to solve these damn problems. But yeah, this is jank.
Which, if you've ever played any GTA game, that happens pretty often. But the funny part about this is that a YouTube rep even admitted that if you're going to be uploading a regular Let's Play video, you might have to actually play the game differently just to avoid getting restricted in the first place. So YouTube's latest censorship update is going after gaming content specifically.
So what I'm hearing is, when I play GTA 6, it's not going to be on YouTube. Basically, what's going to end up happening is, when I do a YouTube stream with that gameplay, it's going to be like, all right, YouTube, see you later. Come over on Twitch and kick. So effed. So effed. All right, let's see this last short here, and then we'll go into the long form videos.
It's a real clown show at YouTube right
The
now.
hell was
I've already
it
seen
stop
the Vimeo
buffering for?
knockoff take down helpful Windows 11 videos because they declared that they were dangerous content, and now this latest move takes a step even further. The channel Enderman has been posting helpful tech videos for nearly a decade. They've had run-ins with YouTube's stupid Windows restrictions before, and now their channel is permanently gone. Allegedly, it's for somehow associating with some random Japanese channel that was also banned, but it turns out it's not just affecting his account. A Tarkov animation channel also got removed for the exact same reason. And if you want even more proof that there's no one sentient running the support over there, when these details were posted on Twitter, their support account asked that the tweets with the channel IDs posted be deleted since it was a security problem.
God damn it, Google.
Even though channel IDs are public and fully displayed in the
That's exactly why I sighed.
Whatever channel you go to. Hopefully there's more than AI running things over there right now, and Enderman gets his account back soon. It's a real...
So to give you an idea just how public these are, so you remember I was doing my Docker over here to fix it? I'm literally doing a channel ID lookup through the API. This is public information. I'm doing that because I do a username lookup, and you have to use the channel ID to properly do a lot of the things in YouTube's API. You can use a username, but using the channel ID is a lot faster. So I do the lookup through that, then I cache it to hit that. Because then it gets quicker if you hit the channel ID. But this is public. That's totally public. He's right in that aspect. Google's really going down the shitter, ain't they? All right. Let's check out what Brody's got. The servo browser finally hits a milestone. I meant to watch this a while ago, but I forgot to.
I didn't think it would ever actually happen. So this here is the server browser engine repo, and this is the tagged releases. The very first tagged release has been made 0.0.1 October 2025.
I remember when Mozilla was talking about the servo engine themselves.
2025 10/19 with some additional manual testing of the release artifacts. This, after all of this time, is the first tagged release of Servo. Now, if you don't understand why I care about this, I don't think you understand how long Servo has been around. And if you do know about Servo...
I think it's been like a decade, if I'm not mistaken. Hold on, let me check this out. Servo engine. (2012). It began at Mozilla in 2012. Allegedly, yeah, when portions of Servo were incorporated into the Gecko engine of Firefox. Also, after Mozilla laid off all the Servo developers in 2020, the governance of the project was transferred to Linux Foundation Europe. Development work officially continues at the same GitHub repo. Okay, yeah, so that was a whole other engine that Mozilla was looking at building. But
probably just as confused that...
You missed that? What public sensitive data is available via YouTube's API? It's the channel ID. It's not... You don't even need the API to get that. Like, to give you an idea, we'll look up Brody's channel here, the guy we're watching the video of, okay? So he has that there, but...
Linux market.
Okay. I forget how you can show it, but this is public information. So basically, if you don't set your username as, whatever, like that, your channel name or channel ID will show up. So I think what we can do is... No, I got it set up too. But, hold on, let me check. Hold on. Customize channel. Yeah. Here. Okay. I had to grab it somewhere else. But this literally goes to my channel. That is my channel ID. If you don't set your username, that is there. Can I use my bot to... Yeah, absolutely. If I literally change this... hold on. If we change this to... Okay, that's Twitch. Okay, let's change the username to... Chat, give me a user that you want me to look up. What desktop environment is that? That's GNOME. Am I using Cosmic? No, I'm not yet. Germs. You want me to look up yours? Alright. Not Herms, Germs. What can you do with someone's channel ID? You can go directly to it. That's it. There's really not much you can do with it malicious. Hey, that's a good one. PewDiePie. Yeah, we can look that up. Let's go with someone that everybody knows. PewDiePie. Alright. So we'll do that. We'll run the Docker. I put in an extra character on accident. It's going to run. We're just going to wait for it to collect that. Okay. I just killed it. Because I saw the ID come across. Alright, so. We have his channel ID right there, okay? Actually, I hit that wrong button. But you see, that's his channel ID right there. This is public information. It's not really all that secure. And it's not really, you know, going to affect anyone. So if I go to... I think it's, what is it? You see what I mean? That's public info. That's completely public. That is open. Anyone can get access to that. There is really nothing malicious you can do with it. That's it. It's just an identifier. It's no different than knowing their username. That's it. That's all there is to it. The only thing knowing this does is if you do... Because when originally I made my bot, in one of its earliest versions when I was learning the API, I literally had you get your own channel ID to look up. But my thought was, I don't want to remember my own channel ID. I want to remember my username. So I built in a translator over here that lets you put the username in there and then does a channel ID lookup. Usernames are not case sensitive. Okay, so anyway, continuing on, Servo.
All this time, it's actually been tagged. How?
What else does my bot show? Nothing.
Is it only at the first tagged release?
YouTube's the only one that has the channel ID part of it.
History. Now, Servo's been around for a very long time. It is one of those early MPL projects. It's also an early project written in Rust. A very, very early Rust project. And like most of those early Rust projects, like most of those early MPL projects, this is a project that came out of Mozilla. And the project first began way back in 2012. First commit, February 9th, 2012, initial add. It is literally just a readme, the Servo Parallel Browser project. And this is very shortly after in March, with some various stubs, some makefile stuff, and things like that. Now, any of you Rust enthusiasts understand exactly how early this is into Rust being a thing.
Oh yeah, that was like early days.
Mozilla involvement in the Rust project. This is when Rust was still very much directly tied to Mozilla, it would live and die with the involvement of Mozilla.
Yep.
And not only the creation of the Rust language, Mozilla in many ways are the founders of the rewrite it in Rust movement. The idea of, hey, we have a thing that already exists, let's take that thing and just make it in Rust. And for quite a long time, it did seem like Server was going to be the thing that Mozilla hyper-focused on, the thing that was going to be the future of Firefox. So by 2014,
think Mozilla is an integral
Server was
entity?
passing
Yes.
the ACID 2 test. This is a test basically to ensure browser functionality. It's a test from 2005, so by no means like the most up-to-date functionality, and that was then replaced by ACID 3, and then things have kind of diverged in many ways. The ACID test was kind of very opinionated, so it's not really a thing anymore. But at least for simple websites, it was already a functional browser way back in 2014. And for some very niche, very edge case use cases, it was faster than Gecko, the engine being used in Firefox. Now, some
At
of
the
you
time,
may
yeah,
remember the
before they moved to
project
Quantum.
for Firefox
Yep.
from way back in 2016.
Said at the
This
same
was
time.
like a big effort to make Firefox this more modern browser, bring in this new functionality, bring in this new UI and stuff
Yeah, I
like
remember
this.
that's the reason why I
And
really
that
came
is
back
when
to
they began
Firefox.
incorporating some of the functionality from Servo into mainline Gecko, and thus into Firefox itself. And later on, Servo was also being used for AR browsers, for augmented reality browsers, like the Magic Leap in 2018, and then Firefox Reality in 2020. But 2020 was kind of the beginning for a major change for both Mozilla and the Servo project. This is when Mozilla did mass layoffs, firing about 25% of their workforce. And with that, almost the entirety of the Servo team. For
Yep.
those who were left around, they were likely moved into various other projects. So Servo at this point was basically dead. Mozilla
completely
didn't
forgot it
care about
existed.
Mozilla wasn't developing it. They just said, you know what? We spent all this money on Servo. Who even cares anymore? But the project wasn't just being entirely abandoned. This is when management of the project moved over to the Linux Foundation Europe. So now it was entirely separated from Mozilla, but it still
covered
was
some of this
not
in the,
a healthy state.
Wiki lookup that I
It was
did.
basically on life support. It existed, there was some management, there was a bit of development, but all of that force that was behind it before was now just gone. This
Can
was
you catch me
during
up on the Firefox terms of
Mitchell-Baker era
service
of
situation? Yeah, I already made a video about that a long time ago. Like months ago. No joke. If you're talking about... Is Firefox selling your data? Let's break it down. That was 7 months ago. Mozilla is Yeah, so you can watch that video if that's the situation you're talking about. The LDR, no, they're not selling your data. People were overreading into it. If you want the specifics, go watch the video. Because I go into it a lot more, and I'm trying to do Servo right now.
When the company was really starting to spiral out of control, where I don't think anyone at Mozilla knew what they were doing, what they were trying to accomplish.
Olama
and
LLM
Mitchell
selling
Baker,
data.
along with
No,
other
it
members
runs
of the
locally on your
executive team,
machine.
were taking massive pay rises during the company just plummeting into the ground. They could have very easily kept the server team around, just, you know, take $1 million a year pay cut, and that wouldn't have even affected Mitchell Baker. It would have been fine, and it could have
people are
stayed being
schmucks,
developed, but
and they
that was
don't
not
want to
gonna
read
at the time, I honestly do
actual
think the corporate
documents
was
and
trying to extract
implications.
as much money as possible from Mozilla, just waiting for the ship to collapse. I don't think that right now they have the best of management. I don't really think they know what they're doing in the AI space right now, but they certainly seem to at least have a plan, which they didn't before. Now, in 2021, the Eclipse Foundation launched Eclipse Onero, or Onero, I don't know how to say it. But basically, this is a foundation for vendor-neutral support amongst embedded and IoT devices. And with this support for
didn't know
OpenHarmony
about
was
that one.
developed into Servo. OpenHarmony is based on Harmony OS, which is the operating system from Huawei, and as of July 2024, experimental server support was added. Now, the real
Interesting.
revival of the project came in 2023 when this blog post was released. Servo to advance in 2023. Things existed, things were being slowly developed, but there wasn't a real push for the project. This was that change. We would like to share some exciting news about the Servo project. This year, thanks to new external funding, a team of developers will be actively working on Servo. The first task is to reactivate the project and the community around it so we can attract new collaborators and sponsors for the project. The focus for 2023 is to improve the situation of the layout system in Servo. The initial goal of getting basic CSS2 layout working, given the renewed activity in the project, we will keep you posted with more updates throughout the year. Stay tuned. So this was with developers from Igalia taking on the role. And when we get to 2024, there was a talk at FOSDEM. This is an article from It's FOSS, but this is about the talk. And this was all about where the project
What's the point if
was
there's always a
and
search
where
engine?
the project is going. And
We're not really
thanks to
using
this
Gecko, we're
renewed
using
interest,
Quantum.
Thanks to this renewed funding, it
But
is now actually possible.
you always
for
want to get a
Servo
better
make
engine.
Any reasonable progress, because when it was just a couple of contributors here and there doing stuff in their spare time, you're not really going to build a browser engine. The way you make that happen is with really active development, with paid developers that can spend as much time as possible. And now Servo is actually becoming a thing that is very, very far from being a production-ready browser, but is becoming an actual browser engine. And this is basically why we hadn't seen a tagged release yet until October of 2025, because whilst the project had been around for a very long time, had been in development for a very long time, it was never actually at a point where it was considered stable enough to put a tag to it. That includes when it was at Mozilla. Back then it was still a very experimental engine.
Yeah, I
Then the
remember people
project
playing with
died
it, but
for,
nobody was
like,
actually using
a
it.
couple of years, and only in the past maybe 1.5 years has there been actual serious work being done on the Servo project to actually bring it to a point where they feel comfortable making a tag. It is still very far from production ready. It is still not a browser that I would install on just random people's systems who don't understand what Servo is. But it's gotten to a point now.
Yeah, install
where
Hannah Montana Linux on
they are
random people's
comfortable to
computer.
say, this is something that can be used. Now, of course, you can always just go and download the source code and just run that directly, but they have always had nightly builds.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to grab that for any system supported, whether that be Windows, macOS, Linux, Android,
I don't use a
Harmony,
Docker front end.
all
No,
of
I do
that
not.
is supported. All of that is a thing you can do, but
If I
a
do,
lot
it's
of people
Portainer,
feel
but
more
I haven't set up a
comfortable
Portainer server yet.
running a tagged version, because generally a tagged version is going to have some level of testing to it and is going to be sort of expected to work to some extent. Whereas a nightly build, you can very easily get just busted nightly builds, and that's just the way it is.
Yep.
With this being the first tag, and with it being 0.01,
Will Windows 11 be the
this is
last
still
Windows we will
very
ever
early.
need?
But it is a step towards production.
last one a lot of
It is
people will be
step
installing.
towards wider involvement from
They
the
said the same thing
community
about Windows
and
10.
wider deployment of the software. And along with this release, they made a blog post about what is happening going forward. Today, the Servo team has released new versions of the Servo shell binaries for all supported platforms tagged 0.01. These binaries are essentially the same nightly builds that were already available from the download page, with additional manual testing now tagging them explicitly as releases for future reference. We plan to publish such a tagged release every month.
Ooh,
But
that'll
now
be
we're
nice.
adopting a simple release process where we'll use a recent nightly build and perform additional manual testing to identify issues and regressions before tagging and publishing the binaries. There are currently no plans to publish these on crates.io or platform-specific app stores. This is still considered to be very early, very experimental,
Yep.
and they don't want to do that wider deployment.
It's not a search
until
engine, it's
considered to
a
be more
browser
of a
engine.
stable and ready state. Right now, if you want to go and use...
So a browser engine is basically, so in Google Chrome, you have, what is it? I think it's V8, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's V8. I want to think it's V8, or is that Safari? I think Safari uses V8. I think they were all right. Yeah. Here we are. So Chrome is using Chromium, Chrome, V8 and Blink, WebKit on iOS and iPadOS, okay? But then when you go over to, say, Firefox was using the Gecko, now Quantum engine, with SpiderMonkey and then WebKit on iOS and iPadOS. Because, Apple needs that. So that's going to be completely different. Basically, it's the underlying engine to this. So the idea is that we can rip out Quantum potentially and drop in Servo. So you have Firefox. No, it's more like a kernel. It's not a driver. It's more like a kernel. It's what actually operates your ability to browse the web. Your web browser around it, this is just the GUI for it. It's the thing that pulls in all the data, it helps render the website and everything there. When people were switching more to Google, that was because we were on the Gecko engine. And Gecko worked well for a while, don't get me wrong. But as you can see, it originally came out in 1998. It had some age on it. Now, Quantum is parts that, they're bringing into all of that. First shipped in November 2017. It was the initial version with major components from the Quantum Servo projects enabled. These include increased performance in the CSS and GPU rendering components. Yeah, so currently it's using the Gecko engine, but bits of it are rewritten to be faster. So imagine Servo could potentially replace the entire Gecko engine. That's at least my understanding of it.
It is only going to be tagged on the GitHub. So even on the download page, you don't have the ability to download 0.01 here. This has the nightly. So if you want that tagged version, if you want to make sure you're using something which is going to get a little bit out of date and is going to be in this weird position that is not ready for most people to be using, you have to know how GitHub works. You have to understand what you're actually looking at. Whilst we're still a very, very long way from having real competition for both Chromium or even just Firefox, I am really happy that we are actually seeing development on an alternative browser engine. Both Servo and Ladybird are a very, very welcome change in this space. I wish them both the best of luck, and from my understanding, Ladybird is further along, but I don't know how long that's going to be the case.
No, I don't know
where Servo's going to be, but either way, I think there's plenty of room for at least 2 more browser engines. Maybe you could fit a couple more when the monopoly is literally 2 of them, and frankly just 1 of them, with the second one holding on because it's being funded by the first one. There's definitely room to make some improvements here. But what do you think? Are you excited for the future of browser engines? Do you hope
Vivaldi can kiss my butt.
Real competition that exists in this space? Or are you happy just with Google owning everything? I'd love to know. So if you liked the video, go like the video.
So the reason why I don't like Vivaldi is they are still very closed source with a lot of the things they do. So let me see. And here's the thing. They're using the same engine as Chromium, so it's just more of the same. But yeah, it's proprietary freeware. It's not even open source. A lot of people mistakenly say, well, it's open source. No, they use open source components, but they are not free and open source software. So, yeah. I'm not a fan of Vivaldi. If they open sourced it, that would be a totally different issue. But they're not open source, so as far as I'm concerned, it can pound sand, and I would rather use Chromium than I would Vivaldi. But I'm still using Firefox. Okay. Let's get one last video for the evening. This is from Chris Norland. I've seen quite a few of his videos. Been following him for a year. So apparently, awful news for Elon Musk and Warren Buffett. No description there about what this is about. Is Chromium Sandbox still better than Firefox? Firefox or Brave? I'd still use Firefox, but if I need to use something with a Chromium-based engine, I'd rather use Brave.
News from both Elon Musk and Warren Buffett, and I also want to give you an update what's going on with the AI data centers in the market. So first, check this out. Buffett's Berkshire sits on record cash pile, what that means for markets. And every time we check on Warren Buffett the last couple of years, it's been the same. They're either selling stock or you're hearing about record cash pile, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So this was then today. Warren Buffett's $6 billion stock exit is his loudest warning yet. And then a few months ago, he had this wild headline because they're sitting on nearly $400 billion in cash. And this, at this point, when this came out, it was like $334 billion. It's a lot of money. And it says Warren Buffett holds enough cash to buy 476 companies in the S&P 500 at current values.
Oy.
He can just start buying whatever he wants, basically, right? The majority of the companies he could just buy. At the moment, though, Buffett's been selling. There's a rumor out there that he might have been dumping yet more Apple stock, so that the papers came out, documents of like disclosure
Interesting.
of what they've been selling, and it's kind of the Apple stock is in a particular category, and like, oh, that's probably Apple stock. It's like 1 point.
It's really amazing if you actually look at Warren Buffett's portfolio of businesses that they own through Berkshire Hathaway. They actually, there's a lot. Like, if I remember, they own Geico, if I'm not mistaken. Was it Geico or Progressive? They own, like, some big companies out there. A lot of people don't know. Are you interested in quant? What is that, software? Or is that some BS currency thing? Not that I'm saying cryptocurrency is BS, but a lot of them are.
Sales. And then they've been a net seller. This is Warren Buffett and the gang. They've been a net seller of stocks for like 12 consecutive quarters. And so you could read this a couple different ways. One is Warren Buffett, they're just selling stuff. So when he retires at the end of the year, the new person who comes in and becomes CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, I think his name is Greg Abel, will be able to take the reins and do whatever they want with the cash. That's one way you could read it. The other way you could read it is, well, I'm not buying at the top, right? I'm not getting into this crypto AI craze, because that's where all the gains have been in the markets. I personally myself think it's a bubble because a lot of the things just don't add up.
Even I think it's a bubble. We talked about this the other day where the lines, basically NVIDIA is the only winner.
Our economy, it just doesn't make sense. I'll show you. Like, look at this headline. This is just today. What happened when small town America becomes data center USA, right? And the basic idea is that we're taking these small towns. Like this one is actually in Oregon, Umatilla. And we'll go into more details.
Yeah, because they need massive amounts of land.
8,000, very, very small. And then they start building like these massive data centers. And the ultimate goal of these things, as you guys know, is to ultimately replace people. And if the U.S. is a consumer economy and we're investing in replacing people, that's just not going to end well. And then you got these people like Elon Musk is like, well, I better grab that money while the getting's good, right? And this is a wild headline because we're going to be voting on Elon Musk's $1 trillion pay package soon. Norway's oil fund to vote against Elon Musk's $1 trillion pay deal at Tesla. And this is a big... I
still can't believe that he's actually having the audacity to ask for a $1 trillion pay package. The only reason he's asking for that is because the man's so much in debt. He basically has shuffling around the money so much. And it didn't even start with the whole buying of Twitter. The buying of Twitter was just another symptom of the problem. Twitter's not worth the money he once bought it for. XAI is a bunch of BS, all that. How much debt is he in? He's in a lot. So here's the thing. Elon Musk, you have to understand, Elon Musk and most of the people that are the wealthiest on Earth, their value is in stock. So people like Elon Musk, they don't actually have cash, as to opposed to Warren Buffett. He actually has cash. He still has investments, but he also has a nice amount of cash, as we've talked about, where he's sitting on like close to half a $500 billion, if I recall, for Berkshire Hathaway. Elon Musk is getting paid in Tesla stock, which he then takes to get loans using his stock as collateral to get the value of, to buy the things that he does. Elon Musk is cash poor. He is. And basically the reason why he has to hype up Tesla stock so much to the point that it's all this grift that he literally has where, you know, you have the Elongelicals going around hyping up his stock. Because if you ever look at the value of Tesla stock, we'll pull this up for a second. The profit to earning ratio of Tesla stock. So he has no liquid value. He barely does. If you look at the Tesla P&E, all right, most companies, well, you want a healthy PE, profit to earning ratio, of, I'd say like 7, 14, maybe 20. Most automakers are in that like 10 range or anything like that. Look at what the PE for Tesla is right now. Oh no, that's, yeah. Look at the PE. 163, all that. So yeah, Tesla is extremely overvalued. That if you look at the fundamentals of stock value, that's where it's at. Let's look at another company like Toyota, okay? Toyota, solid company, pretty good standing with how they're standing, you know, for all of their stuff. All right? Their PE... Okay, really do not like Yahoo how you lay it out and you just move that whole thing. 9.45. So close to 10. That's about where you want for, you know, a healthy company. Let's look at Apple. Okay? Apple, I think, is going to have a little bit higher PE. Apple, 36 and a quarter. Apple's doing really well. But even they have a slightly high PE. All right? Let's look at Oracle. Okay? Oracle's at a 57.94. So pretty high. Amazon. It's a good one to look up. Amazon. They're sitting at around the same as Apple. 35.34. So, you know, they're a little high, but they're doing well. But then you look at Tesla, and Tesla is, like, completely off the chart in unrealistic territory, where it is straight up a bubble. Okay, so this is where it's actually at, the PE ratio. I was looking at the different, with the trailing and all that. 314.33. Okay? Realistically, the value of Tesla stock should be about 1/10 of where it's at. And that would still be high. Because most car companies are, if I recall, between that 7 and 14 range. Like, let's look up Ford, okay? Ford. Okay, you're not showing a PE. Interesting. Wait, now, are you still calculating? Okay, for some reason you're not showing a PE right there. Interesting. Chrysler. No, wait. Chrysler is bought out by, was it Stellantis? So he just hypes up the stocks. What a LARPer grift. Yeah, he just hypes up the stocks. That's all he's doing. Okay, they're not showing a PE either. But yeah, you can, like, look up, let's say, Microsoft, okay? Microsoft is a PE of 36. Honda. Come on. Honda Motor Company. 11. Most automakers are between that 7 and 14 mark. Rivian, we can look at them. Rivian's going to be a little bit different because I don't think they've still made... Yeah, so the reason why they're not showing is because they're not making a profit. Okay? Their earning per share is -3. Because Rivian and Lucid are still companies that are technically still in debt. See, like, look, earnings per share, they're technically in debt $11.30 per share. And I have a feeling Ford and all the rest of them are basically in the same boat. We did Ford, Chevy. So who owns Chevy now? I think somebody bought Chevy, if I'm not mistaken. I think they were under Stellantis. Fiat is owned by another company, if I remember. Who owns Chevy? GM. Okay, GM owns them. Couldn't remember off the top of my head. Tesla and Ford are the only two auto companies that have never gone bankrupt. I think Ford has. Okay, so GM's at a 13. They're doing pretty well for auto companies, okay? Let's look at Volkswagen. The Volkswagen Group has a lot of cars in their... Okay, Volkswagen... That should be fine. Volkswagen is at 6.96, but you see most of the established companies... OpenAI is not publicly traded. But yeah, you see how all these companies have an incredibly, reasonable profit-to-earning ratio? But then you have Tesla that's at like 300 and something. Realistically, they should be at 1/10th, maybe even 1/20th of what they are right now. So Elon has to have Tesla's stock value high in order for him to keep his personal wealth up. Because his entire empire is a house of cards. Bugatti's owned by Volkswagen. You guys really should look into car companies because a lot of them are owned by other car companies. The Volkswagen Group owns Volkswagen, Bugatti, and Porsche. Like Chevy, we looked them up. GM owns them. Jeep isn't their own thing. They're owned by Stellantis. So, yeah. But the reality is, Elon Musk needs to get paid out in Tesla stock in order to keep his wealth up. Oh yeah, they do own Audi. I forgot about that. If he doesn't keep getting paid in large amounts of stock, his entire empire is a house of cards. Because he paid for a lot of the loans for the Twitter purchase with stock. He had to borrow money against stock to do that. He had to do the same thing with SpaceX. I don't know what percentage of Jaguar is owned by Waymo. But yeah, let's get back to this.
There's like, that's just too much. Come on, we're not going to approve that thing. And I'm really curious.
I got to pause again. I completely forgot that Norway has their sovereign wealth fund, and they are a large investor in so many different companies, that I'm not shocked that Norway is one of the people with the biggest votes to say no to Tesla paying a $1 trillion pay package. This is unrealistic. No CEO should be paid $1 billion, let alone $1 trillion. Like, seriously, once you get paid $1 billion, that's more money than anyone knows what to do with, okay? Hell, you get paid... I can't even think, like, my goal in life, if I can ever manage to do it, like, you get $10 million, I could literally live off the interest with my entire lifestyle for the rest of my life. Like, just off the interest.
What's going to happen? That's in a couple days. I'll cover it when we get the results.
Like, I could retire.
I'll just say this. I don't think anyone in the whole world in the history of the world is worth $1 trillion. To even suggest it is just ludicrous, let alone a failing company like Tesla who doesn't really have anything new
And
coming
Tesla
out,
is
and their
failing.
sales are sagging. Look at this. Tesla's China shipments resume drop as EV makers' woes mount.
Yep.
It's a
And Tesla's
competitive
battery
business
technology is
right?
falling behind
I
from
mean,
the sodium and other
so
batteries.
many, big name brands are going to be coming out with stuff every year. They come out with stuff. Where Tesla doesn't really come out with new stuff.
No, they don't.
Right? You know, Honda, Toyota, Kia.
They can't even get their
Hyundai,
autopilot
Chinese
working
brands, like a BYD, which is a real serious competitor. Then you
I
got
like
Volkswagen,
BYD.
Mercedes, BMW,
And Xiaomi.
list goes
They got
on.
good cars.
And I don't see any way forward for Tesla. I think they're done. And at the moment,
Houses
it's
are
just a big
cheaper in the
stock
U.S.
pumping
How much is
company.
yours? Do you
And
own
then
it?
Elon's like, hey, well, I'm going to get on this AI trend as well. I'm gonna be like the biggest AI robotics company in the world.
Mine right
And
now
all you have to do to
is
figure out that it's
around
all a scam is just
200K.
anytime you want, go hop
If
over.
I bought
look
my
at
house
Boston
now,
Dynamics,
I
you're
couldn't
like,
afford it.
It's a much better robot. It's obvious for anyone. And it's not just Boston Dynamics. You could look at anything, some of these companies in China they're doing, and they're going to come in cheaper and most likely be a lot better. Now, this matters, though. You do want to track all this stuff because, again, this is what's driving our markets is all this promise that we're all going to be rich off robots and AIs and data centers, but it doesn't add up because the whole goal is to replace us. And if we don't have any money to buy anything because we won't have jobs anymore, how's that going to end? And
Right,
you
it's a
get these
bubble.
headlines. This is what's going on. Microsoft pledges $15 billion investment as
don't-
U.S. approves in
Like, don't get me wrong. I do think that there's going to be AI companies that still exist outside this bubble the same way that the dot-com bubble, when it bursted, it took a lot of companies out, but some still survived, like eBay, Amazon, Google. But there's going to be a lot of the AI products that are just going to go away. Like right now, you're seeing everyone and their mom add AI into their products that are unrealistic. Yeah. What state am I in? I'm in a state of denial. And yes, I do have boom booms. I've talked about them. I have videos of me going shooting. Like, here. Actually, I couldn't put I don't think TikTok let me show this as well. But, if we go to my shorts, you can actually see me at the DEF CON shoot with one of mine. Light the fires, kick the tires. That's me. With one of mine. But yeah.
NVIDIA chips for UAE.
Not open carry, yes, but
So
open carrying is a
basically
dumb
why all the
tactical
big tech
move.
Bros want to be
Concealed
buddy
is
buddy
where
with
it's
Trump,
at.
is to get the approval, so you can send chips to wherever you want. In this case, UAE is trying to make buddies with Trump to say get said chips. Because they see the writing on
Is
the
it going to
wall as
happen
well,
that AI
in
is
the
going to
release.
replace us all?
They
No.
want to diversify their economy, not just be oil only economy. Hey, why not?
Okay, I know I'm pausing a lot. I'm sorry. AI is not going to replace us all. Automation is going to adapt different jobs. People feared, for example, the ATM, the automated teller machine, was going to completely take away bank tellers. We see ATMs everywhere. But are there no more bank tellers? No. In fact, there's also a whole other section of jobs that was created for people to repair and maintain ATMs. Do I value the Second Amendment? Yes. Of course, that, is up for another debate for different things, but I believe it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And, as flawed as the United States may be, as every country has their own flaws, I do think the idea of a government being fearful of its people is a very valuable thing to have a just society. That's not me threatening politicians or anything. That is literally enshrined in how the Constitution and the founders thought.
Get into the AI crypto data center gig, right? Why not? As if that makes any sense to, build these things that are really energy intensive. You're going to build them in hot, climates in the world. And I just don't think any of this stuff is going to end well. I'll just leave it at that. And then the Trump people then, if you, give them enough favors and build their ball or whatever, they'll approve it. In some situations, they won't because there's always conflicting interests. So
Elon
this just
teased
came out
about
today
flying
also.
cars on Rogan.
From
Elon
officials,
promises a
Torpedo,
lot of
NVIDIA's push
bullshit.
to export AI chips to China. Okay.
Okay, sorry. I know I'm pausing a lot. Elon promises a lot of BS, and the honest truth is, and I've already had this conversation with several people, they're like, well, Elon's a smart person. I'm like, no. He's a person that has a lot of money to hire the smart people. But he himself is not really all that smart. When's the last time he himself has built anything? Designed anything? He really hasn't. His family had an emerald mine, which he was born with wealth, which made it easier for him to amass more wealth because he had more privileges and opportunities than most of us did. And everyone's like, well, you know, he has these great ideas. He's a visionary. Dude, I can show you college kids that are ripping bongs right now that can give you really amazing ideas. Doesn't mean they're great ideas. You see what I'm saying? He's just another Edison. The irony of a guy owning Tesla and acting like Edison. Exactly.
I guess it's okay to send chips to the Middle East, right? UAE, but maybe not to China. And then if you have rough patches there, then China will have a couple different options. One would be they can make their own chips eventually, which may rival NVIDIA's at a
China will make their own chips. They already
price.
are starting to do that with RISC-V and everything else.
For China, I don't think they're there yet to where they can, you know, compete with NVIDIA at that level, but I don't think they're far away.
Give them 5 to 10 years, you'll see them being competitive.
It was like, I think it was some crazy number, like 100th of the cost of, like 1 out of 100, right? The 100th of the cost of the American version of, say, data center.
Yeah, the DeepSeek stuff.
But
Yeah,
the actual chips aren't quite there yet. And then NVIDIA is making the case too. Well, if we do sell chips to China,
Chinese people are very smart. I got a few counterparts and people I've talked to in China that do cybersecurity out there.
All this is a bubble. Now, if there isn't any sort of deal thing, and yes, I know that there's a trade truce at the moment trade war truce, I should say, between China and USA, but China could always just say, hey, you're not getting your rare earth materials. And then we're only going to build chips in China, and we got the market. So there, Yep. So we're going to see. Keep track of this stuff. And again, this is all about data centers.
Okay, so I got to pause one more time because he mentioned something that's actually worthwhile to talk about. REM, rare earth minerals. So the interesting thing about REM is that the U.S. and other countries have their own supplies of REM. China, however, is the predominant supplier of it because they also have the ability to mine and refine REM into being used in all the electronics around the world. If the US or the West as a whole were to actually do their own, it'd probably take at least 5 to 10 years for us to spin up that infrastructure. And we wouldn't probably be as cost effective as China at doing it too. Which chips are these? These are wild protein chips. They're actually made from chicken breasts. They're heavy in protein. They're great.
Pretty pronounced in the Chinese market. I didn't realize this. And I'll read it and you'll see. It says Asian markets, the reliance on AI boom raises bubble fears. Mm-hmm. And here, this is a chart. They're looking at PE ratios, okay?
Oh, I never even knew this.
There's a couple companies. There's the Cambricon, so that's in China, and the SMIC. And their price to earnings ratios is like through the roof. You know, it's a couple hundred, 200 to 300. Whereas
but we're talking about P&E
is also very high. Like it's like 55, and AMD is about 120.
Look how high these P&E stocks are. Like Cambricon is close to Tesla levels of P&E. It's not sustainable. SMIC, same thing. Even AMD, which is like in that 140, 150 range, that's a little high. NVIDIA is like, it's a little high here, but it's a somewhat sustainable number. That's insane.
This is, the price of stocks compared to how much money the company makes, right? It's a ratio. But that means, you can just see right there, they're either expecting Chinese, chip makers to just grow massively their earnings the next couple of years, or it's just like this massive bubble and everyone's overpaying for said things, which certainly could be a possibility. I just don't think it can last because same thing with the data center is once you build these data centers.
How is AMD higher?
You're not going to.
It's a ratio.
Right? What I mean, there's going to be a finite amount that you need. right? Do you expect every city in the
Your
whole world to have a
profit
data center and endless
per
growth of data
earning
centers? Like, there's gonna be a point where
ratio.
we just don't have the power and we don't have the need for said thing. And we've actually had a similar situation here in Korea where lately it's like a couple of stocks have been driving the market. You can see the Kospi, that's the big one that's been shooting up.
Never even
And
heard
then
of
when you
these
look
ones.
at the boots in the ground, as I like to call it, you'll realize very quickly, man, this is crazy. And that's why I want to go over the details of this one. What happened when a small town America became data center USA? This is in northeastern Oregon. I've been to this part before. I'm from Oregon, if you guys don't know, but usually you don't go out to these cities. There's just not a lot there. But evidently they are starting to bring money into the community. Essentially, this is another picture of it. I had to look one up, but it looks like that. It's just a big
That's a
data
pretty
center.
size.
And you'll find these in rural parts of the USA. So it says,
Yeah, like you look over here. Somewhere over here, that's US East 2. Somewhere, I want to say over here, is US East 1. This is AWS. And I think US West 1, somewhere around there, maybe. But yeah,
33 counties that accounted for 72% of U.S. data center capacity. So there, and I'll be curious if you guys have seen these yourself. So there's some in Washington, Oregon, Nevada, California, Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma, Georgia, South Carolina. I'm just looking at the map here. Virginia, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, and Nebraska. And they tend to be in smaller towns, right? The land's going to be cheap there. You're all also going to have, concerns. Can we get enough energy out there? And can we get people to staff said things?
it's not just what he's talking about. I've had to deal with some data centers. So you have to worry about multiple things. The reason why Ohio actually has a lot of data centers is not just what he mentioned. There is a lot of fiber access over here. But it's also climate. So you need to have several concerns when you're doing a data center. You have power. You have internet. You have cooling, so climate. And then also access to water, which plays into the cooling. Because you need to, in order to efficiently cool a lot of these server systems, you need to have water cooling. But water cooling can only cool your system so much down to the ambient temperature outside. There's ways to do like mineral immersion and all that stuff. We're not going to get into that. But there's a lot that goes into that. So, yeah, there's a reason why these data centers are placed where they are. Texas is kind of an interesting one, though, because that climate is not the best, and the water access is not always the best in most parts of Texas. But, yeah, blows my mind that, like, if you think about it, most of the internet is housed in Virginia, because that's AWS US East 1. I don't know why everyone builds everything out there. How often do you shave, clean up your goatee? Usually I do it about every few days or so, but I'm trying to grow the beard out.
But there are not that many jobs, actually.
Right.
Let me read just a little bit of it, and you can get a flavor. It says, her hometown in Northeast Oregon was not long ago known as a former chemical weapons depot nearby, okay? A state prison on the city's outskirts, and strip clubs once dotting its main drag. So that kind of tells you the type of the community it is. But a growing fleet.
Why haven't they made artificial caves underground? Ambient temperatures like 62.
Into a
Do you know how
unlikely
expensive
nerve center
it
for one of the
is
most expensive
to do
infrastructure
underground stuff?
build-outs in U.S. history? So a lot of money going into stuff.
It's the logistics.
It mentions some cities in particular. It's talking about Atlanta suburbs, Texas Prairie.
Yeah, most of it's cheese and data.
Dakota, and just was mentioned.
So you have different kinds of data centers. So you have level 3 and level 4 data centers. So level 3 is basically, you know, what a lot of data centers that I've dealt with at. So concurrently maintainable. It's designed for continuous operation by having multiple independent paths of power and cooling, allowing for planned maintenance without downtime. It has an expected uptime of 99.982%. Okay? 99.982%. Usually it's built on patterns of 3, meaning like you always not only have one backup, but you have a backup to the backup, because what happens if the main goes down and then you are now on the auxiliary system, the backup system? Well, what happens if while you're fixing the backup system and the main system, the backup system goes out? You need to have a backup to that. So that's where that goes. So it's basically built on N+1 redundancies. Now, Tier 4 is where it gets more expensive. Tier 4 has a lot of things involved, okay? So Tier 4, let me look up what the requirements are. Full fault tolerance with complete redundant power and cooling systems to ensure a minimum uptime of 99.995%. Means it's uninterrupted. It builds on a redundancy of 2N, so 2N+1. So, yeah, they can provide power for at least 96 hours during a power outage, and a lot of times they're also the ones that are built into mountains and stuff. They're extremely expensive data centers, but there's a reason why they don't build them into mountains. It's expensive. It's the logistics to get into and out of it. And then not everyone, and then once you have a cave, you also have to make sure you're pumping in air and all of this other stuff. Whereas you have a general data center building, it's a lot easier and cheaper to build. That's just how it is.
Meaning that communities are sort of in these, smart communities are fighting over these kind of data centers, giving tax breaks or whatever. And then the way they structure the money is a little bit funky. Yes, local communities do get some of the money, so some of the schools, et cetera, but it's not done through typical property taxes. They called it non-tax money. And I didn't quite understand that part, to be perfectly frank, because I was reading, I was like, how are you guys structuring this if it's not property tax? Because I think part of the incentive is to, get them to come out, and then we're not going to tax you. And cheap land, great. Let me read a little bit more and you guys can hear what I'm saying. Fears that construction could peter out haven't deterred towns from tethering their fortunes more tightly to the corporate spending sprees and stratospheric Wall Street valuations that are fueling talk of a bubble. Mm-hmm. And that's funny because we just looked at the talk of the bubble in Asia, right? And you can see it in the PE ratios. In nearby Hermanston, Oregon, where small armies of workers recently toiled at 2 data center sites ringed by barbed wire fences, officials are trying to annex land for additional development in a bet the boom will continue. Now, I've have not been on one of these, so if there's indeed barbed wire fences, these things, I'd be curious. You guys let me know. They were saying here that
data centers usually have barbed wire,
like Area 51, because people have to sign non-disclosure agreements, so you can't really say what you're doing at your work or what's going on inside there. So it's kind of funny. Who knows? Maybe there are alien technology in that thing for all we know, right?
So the reason why they do that in a lot of data centers is because a lot of data centers have government areas where the government can do their data processing. Because they have different requirements. Like, I remember my buddy that ran a data center, when he gave me a tour, because at the MSP I was working at, we were about to rack some stuff. He asked us if we have to go with federal requirements, because inside that data center, inside the data center that he had for the city, they had some infrastructure that was inside a locked rack inside that data center. Like, there was a whole cage around racks that were, government, compliancy, different compliancies like FedRAMP and stuff like that. And you could only access that side with other access. And I couldn't even be able to access it because I wasn't cleared for it. Yeah, it's there's a lot that goes into some of these data centers when you're talking about GovCloud. So if you look at a data centers like AWS, or you look at CrowdStrike, or stuff like that, they'll talk about GovCloud. That has a whole other slew of regulations and requirements around there that they may be located in the same data centers or potentially their own data center, but they have a whole other set of requirements and verifications, authorizations, validations, everything that goes into it beyond what a regular data center has. But yeah.
We're open for business, it says, okay? If this is what's going on right now, this is what it's going to be, okay? And then it says it was like Area 51. That was the joke. It was like Area 51, noting that many of her new customers referenced non-disclosure agreements. It was just hysterical.
Yep.
And then I guess the people come in and they use the local businesses, right? So there is some money coming into the communities. Amazon and Two Good Thursdays pays my rent. The company gets a lot in return, big tax breaks, and three resources that data centers need in abundance: land, water, and power. So that's what you need. You need land, water, and power for these things. Yep. Check out this chart. This actually shows you where the money's going in USA. You can literally see it right there in the chart. The blue line that's just like making this like crazy line up, right? And this is since 2019 private spending, right? The data center construction is just going through the roof. You can see it right there. Whereas new offices are flat. So that's where you can kind of see what's happening. I mean, you can see it. And as I mentioned before, the idea though is that these data centers are ultimately going to replace everyone. Just read a little more and you'll see like there's not as many jobs as you think there would be. So when Trump says there's going to be a bunch of investment and all these jobs are coming back, you're going to have temporary jobs building these things, but after that, not so much.
Yep.
So we'll read it for you. It says, AWS shares a little about how many guards and technicians each data center requires once it's running. So we don't actually know exactly, right? Shares very little about how many guards and technicians each data center requires. Fueling jokes by some residents that security at the facilities rivals the state prison nearby. Okay, maybe. In Umatilla, where Amazon, they make jokes about it, right? It's funny. Who has more guards, the Amazon, web service center or the prison?
Depends. If it's GovCloud, they do have a lot of guards.
Already 4 separate campuses surrounding parking lots now stand largely empty, right? So some things you may not know exactly how many people there, but you can see how many cars are in the lot. Consulting firm Johnson Economics estimates that each Ford building campus in the area supports as many as 140 full-time workers. Basically, not that many.
Yep.
140 full-time workers. And the way they say this is this at the Ford building campus. So you can do the math, maybe 30 or some, people at each building, something like that. Local officials rely on third-party location tracking software to guess the number of jobs created where workers lay their heads at night. The data suggests that many of them are at least currently living nearby. It's very interesting when you read through this stuff. I knew there wasn't that many workers at these things, but first time I had heard an exact
there's not a lot of people that work at data centers.
Jokes too, comparing it to the local state prison, and also gives you a sense of like the kind of communities that this would be in, where they said there's a nearby.
You really only need a few dozen people to support your average data center.
It's just that kind of environment, and then strip clubs everywhere, I guess. Instead of paying property taxes, developers typically make non-tax payments to governments totaling millions annually as part of a year-long deal for each data center campus. And that's the part wasn't clear. It's just not clear. And I'll read again, and if you guys have any thoughts on what you think this means and how it plays out, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this one. Instead of paying property taxes, developers typically make non-tax payments to governments. And you could read that any number of ways, right? Non-tax payments to governments. In Umatilla, that money is controlled by the city and county officials rather than traditional taxing districts like schools and the fire department, right? You can use your imagination with this stuff. But to be fair, they did say though that some of the Amazon money has gone to local schools, and the schools and the students have a little bit better equipment to learn, tech and robotics, which I think is a good thing. But when you get this kind of stuff and a lot of money coming in quickly to these small towns, I'm sure there's all sorts of we'll say tomfoolery going on. I wouldn't be shocked. That has contributed to political strife, including tension over whether to fund new projects or existing services, right? This year's Sipe's son, Mayor Caden Sipe, sued the city manager and city council members for allegedly infringing his First Amendment rights after they censored him in a dispute centered on spending.
Really?
Those leaders have denied his accusations and moved to dismiss the suit. So Obviously, there's going to be fights over this stuff when you're talking about a lot of money, and everyone's going to
Yep.
want needs for the community. It doesn't mean everything is necessarily in bad faith. It's a lot of money, and they never had to make these kind of decisions of where the money should go and how it should be allocated. But overall, though, I am concerned. If you put it all together in sum, Buffett is selling stock. He's holding on cash. Elon Musk is trying to do a cash grab. And all this supposed growth in the markets is data centers, which is, again, designed to replace you, the consumer, yet the American consumer is, 70% of the American GDP in, our market. We expect people to buy stuff. So at the end game, just doesn't make sense to me. And I think there's going to be a lot of, real upheaval when people are going to find out, wow, you're investing all this money to replace me. So that's my thoughts on this. I'd like to hear yours. Please be careful out there. And I'll catch you on the next video. So it appears that billionaires and
XVG coin. Bro, 2016 is calling. Most cryptocurrencies are BS overhyped things. XVG was one of those. Even I've gotten out of most of the cryptocurrency stuff. And even then, I still like Bitcoin and Monero. Those are primarily the ones I have. Screw the rest, for the most part. But anyway, thank you all for joining me. It's getting a little late. I do have work tomorrow, so I do need to start hitting the hay. But Zcash, no. But thank you all for joining me. I will see you all. What was it? Sunday, I think, is the next official stream. Saturday night, we're gonna be watching on movie night History of the World Part 1. So join us in the Discord. Make sure, if you haven't already, join me. If you haven't already, join the Discord, join the Matrix, and the links are in bio if you want to join that. Also, don't forget to follow on all of my socials. I'm on Blue Sky, Mastodon, YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, Kick. I'm on all those platforms. So I will see you all later. Stay safe and happy hacking. Hopefully I'll have more information on the LLM server I'm building next stream, because I have to go to Micro Center stuff. But yep, see you later. Stick around for the raid if you're on Twitch.